Chapter 1880. She first went to the Greenwave Han Mansion to look for Xuan Ai before she was brought to the Azure Cloud Mansion by the person my father sent. 1. Reading? Duan Lingtian answered Nan Gongyi's question. However, his expression turned grave when he reached the end of his sentence. He could not help but clench his fists as a cold gleam flashed in his eyes. At that time, the person his father had sent to pick up Li Fei was precisely Elder Ku. The moment he thought about Elder Ku, the scene of him dying in front of him was still vivid in his mind. Although he was not directly involved in Elder Ku's death, he was indirectly involved in it. After all, it was because he possessed the Devil Seal tablet that he attracted Xiezong, the powerhouse from the upper provinces Zhuangzi Buddhism. If it were not for that, Xiezong would not have appeared in the Azure Cloud Mansion, and Elder Ku would not have died. Not only that, but the 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples would not have died as well. For this reason, Duan Lingtian felt extremely guilty and blamed himself for killing Elder Ku and the 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples. At the same time, he swore to himself that he would never forget about killing Elder Ku and the 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples. In the future, whether it was to wash away the humiliation Xiezong had brought to him or to avenge Elder Ku and the 10 Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples, he would never let Xiezong go. Even if Xiezong was an elder from the Zhuangzi Buddhism and had the support of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, Duan Lingtian would never forgive him. The person Duan Lingtian wanted to kill must die. In terms of pride, Duan Lingtian was not inferior to Zhu Luqi, the former palace master of Heaven Palace in the mystical Sky Mansion. However, unlike Zhu Luqi, he would not cultivate a devil Dao cultivation method like the devouring dark devil technique in order to seek revenge. However, this didn't mean that he would watch his enemy live a good life. Duan Lingtian had his own way of seeking revenge. Compared to Zhu Luqi, his biggest advantage was his young age. As long as he was given time, he was confident he would be able to catch up to and even surpass Elder Xiezong from the Zhuangzi Buddhism. At that time, it would be Xiezong's death. What? Did I say something wrong? Seeing that something was wrong with Duan Lingtian, Nan Gongyi asked nervously. It's none of your business. Hearing Nan Gongyi's words, Duan Lingtian regained his senses and shook his head. Then, he looked at Bai Li Hong and began to introduce Li Fei. Senior brother, this is my wife, Li Fei. I've told you about her before. Hello, sister-in-law. Bai Li Hong smiled and greeted Li Fei. He thought to himself, Junior Marshal brother really has good taste. Senior brother. Li Fei quickly responded. She knew the position of this senior brother Bailey in her man's heart, so she didn't dare to slight him in the slightest. Then, Bai Li Hong's gaze landed on the little boy that Li Fei was holding. Is this your child? What's his name? Niantian. Duan Niantian. Li Fei replied with a smile. Duan Lingtian, I'm getting more and more envious of you now. Nan Gongyi looked at Duan Lingtian and said, Not only is your innate talent heaven-defying, but your background is also terrifyingly powerful. Moreover, not only do you have a beautiful wife, but you even have a child now. You're really a winner in life. We're all humans, but why do I feel like God favors you more? When Nan Gongyi reached the end of his sentence, his tone was filled with jealousy. Naturally, he was only joking when he said this. Nan Gongyi's words instantly amused everyone present on the scene, causing the atmosphere to become much more relaxed. Senior brother, Uncle Feng, I'm sure both of you have heard about me by now. The reason I came back this time is to bring both of you to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Compared to the Situ clan, the Azure Cloud Mansion is much better in every aspect. Duan Lingtian did not beat around the bush as he revealed the purpose of his trip. Go to the Azure Cloud Mansion? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, whether it was Nangong, Chun Xiao Shuai, and Qin Xiao Shuai's eyes lit up immediately. As the saying went, man strives for higher ground while water flows for lower ground. If there was a better development, naturally, they would not want to stay in the same spot forever. To them, going to the Azure Cloud Mansion was undoubtedly a better development. Senior brother, Uncle Feng, what about the both of you? Upon seeing the reaction of the Nangong brothers and Chun Xiao Shuai, Duan Lingtian knew they were willing to go to the Azure Cloud Mansion. For a moment, he looked at Bai Li Hong and Feng Wu Dao. I have no problem with that. Bai Li Hong smiled as he replied. To him, It did not matter where he stayed. Going to the Azure Cloud Mansion was, naturally, the best choice right now. I have no problem with that. However, if Tianwu comes back, Feng Wu Dao was slightly hesitant. Uncle Feng, the news about me has spread throughout the entire WCI subterranean. If you were Tianwu, what would you do after hearing about me? Duan Lingtian asked. Of course, I'd go to the Azure Cloud Mansion to look for you. All right, I'll go to the Azure Cloud Mansion with you. In the beginning, Feng Wu Dao was confused because he was closely involved, and when he heard Duan Lingtian's question that had a deep meaning, he instantly came to a realization. As for Xiong Quan and Gold Thug, Duan Lingtian did not ask about them at all. Even if he did not ask, he knew their choice would be to leave with him. In that case, I'll go with all of you to bid farewell to the clan leader of Situ clan. The reason Duan Lingtian returned this time was to bring Bai Li Hong and the others to the Azure Cloud Mansion. Due to this reason, after asking for Bai Li Hong and the others' opinions, he immediately went to look for the clan leader of Situ clan with them. After exchanging some pleasantries, they bade farewell and left. When Duan Lingtian left, his heart was filled with emotions. The clan leader of Situ clan he met this time was a completely different person compared to the clan leader of Situ clan he knew in the past. Although the clan leader of Situ clan was courteous to him in the past, it was not as exaggerated as it was now. However, he could roughly guess the reason why the clan leader of Situ clan seemed like a completely different person. It was none other than his current identity. In the past, he only had slightly higher innate talent and strength, but he did not have any background. Currently, not only was he a divine saint stage powerhouse, but he was also the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. The Azure Cloud Mansion was a quasi-third-rate force. As the leader of a seventh-rate force, the clan leader of Situ clan had always treated a powerful force like the Azure Cloud Mansion with reverence. Naturally, he treated Duan Lingtian with reverence as well. Junior brother, you're leaving the lower province? After leaving Windfall Nation, on the way back to the Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian told Bai Li Hong that he would be going to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land soon. Bai Li Hong frowned immediately.
Yes.
Duan Lingtian nodded. Then, he looked into the distance with a determined gaze. Someone's waiting for me there. At the same time, a beautiful figure appeared in Duan Lingtian's mind. It was none other than his other wife, Kerr. As for who Duan Lingtian was referring to, Bai Li Hong and the others could roughly guess who it was. For a time, even Bai Li Hong did not comment on Duan Lingtian's decision to go to the upper province. While Duan Lingtian was leading Bai Li Hong and the others back to the Azure Cloud Mansion, Elder Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism, who had just passed through the passage leading to the upper province from the WCI subterranean to the upper province, discovered the Oracle Man had completely disappeared from under his nose. Damn it! Naturally, Xiezong knew very well what it meant for the Oracle Man to disappear from under his nose. This meant it was impossible for him to catch up to Duan Lingtian. I can't believe the Oracle Man's speed is not inferior to mine at all. Moreover, he's only the successor of the seven absolute sects' second absolute, the Prophet progeny, that's the weakest in combat. If he's the successor of the first absolute, the Fog Rain progeny, who would be able to stop him? The moment Xiezong thought of this, his expression turned solemn. Although the three great sects, including the Zhuangzi Buddhism, were unwilling to talk about that period of history, it was true. Back then, the three great sects had joined forces and managed to survive under the watchful eyes of the Seven Absolutes sect. The reason the Seven Absolutes sect was so powerful at that time was all because the first absolute, the Fog Rain progeny, had a heaven-defying successor. That heaven-defying successor was someone who stunned an entire era. His name was Feng Qingyang, and he was also known as the Sword Saint. At that time, even if the strongest powerhouses in the three great sects joined forces, they were not a match for him at all. Fortunately, the Seven Absolute sect's first absolute, the Fog Rain progeny, has very strict requirements for its successor. Ever since that time, I've never heard of a successor from the Fog Rain progeny. When Xiezong thought of this, he sighed in relief. At this moment, Xiezong would never have imagined that the Devil Seal tablet he had obtained not long ago was taken from the successor of the Fog Rain progeny. Apart from the Fog Rain progeny, The Seven Absolutes sect has three other absolutes that are good at combat: tremendous strength, blazing fire, and Gemini. Although the last absolute is not good at fighting in the open, he's the absolute king in the dark. Xiezong muttered to himself. Based on his fluent speech, it was obvious he had a certain understanding of the Seven Absolutes sect. The Seven Absolutes sect was divided into seven absolutes. The first absolute, fog rain. The second absolute, prophet progeny. The third absolute, tremendous strength. The fourth absolute, dark shadow. The fifth absolute, blazing fire. The sixth absolute, Gemini. The seventh absolute, red dust. Among them, the first absolute, the fog rain, had always been the spiritual leader of the Seven Absolutes sect. The second absolute, the prophet, was a wise man and a military advisor. At the same time, he was skilled in the art of divination. The sixth absolute, red dust, was in charge of gathering information. He was the core of the Seven Absolutes sect. The third absolute, tremendous strength, the fifth absolute, blazing fire, and the sixth absolute, Gemini, were the three absolutes that were best at combat in the Seven Absolutes sect apart from the fog rain progeny. As for the fourth absolute, dark shadow, as its name implied, it was hidden in the dark like the shadow of the Grim Reaper. It could kill without leaving a trace. It was the king of assassins. It was precisely this kind of sect that was able to shake the three great sects in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, including the Zhuangzi Buddhism, whenever they discovered something. Since I've returned to the upper province, I'll refine the Devil Seal Tablet and make it acknowledge me as its master. Once the Devil Seal Tablet acknowledges me as its master, there won't be more than 100 devil cultivators in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land that I can't suppress with my strength. Xiezong muttered to himself as he returned to the Zhuangzi Buddhism. As for the Azure Cloud Mansion and Duan Lingtian, they had long been forgotten by him. Chapter 1881. Although Xiezong was wary of the nine-clawed divine dragon behind Duan Lingtian due to his ability to transform into a nine-clawed dragon warrior, however, this did not mean that Xiezong was wary of Duan Lingtian. In fact, in Xiezong's eyes, whether Duan Lingtian was a nine-clawed dragon warrior or not, he was just like an ant. In the history of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there were many seven-clawed dragon warriors and eight-clawed dragon warriors who had achieved nothing. This was because humans who obtained the ability to transform into a dragon warrior would not have their innate talent improved. The ability to transform into a dragon warrior would only grant them a higher combat strength. For example, although Duan Lingtian's strength was comparable to a divine saint stage powerhouse, he was still no match for a quintessential saint stage powerhouse even if he could transform into a nine-clawed dragon warrior and unleash all his techniques. It was even more impossible for him to be a match for Xiezong, who had already entered the saint celestial stage. In Xiezong's opinion, although the innate talent Duan Lingtian had displayed in the Debussy Subterranean was not bad, it was nothing. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, although there were not many young powerhouses with innate talent like Duan Lingtian, there were still many of them. Moreover, when he was Duan Lingtian's age, he was already at the intermediate exemplary saint stage. Due to this reason, he did not think Duan Lingtian would be able to catch up to him. Since Duan Lingtian could not catch up to him, there was nothing to worry about. Xiezong had already thought about this when he dismissed the idea of killing Duan Lingtian. If Duan Lingtian had the potential to catch up to him, he would not show mercy to Duan Lingtian even if he had to risk angering the nine-clawed divine dragon. In other words, it was because Xiezong had underestimated Duan Lingtian's innate talent that Duan Lingtian was able to survive. The Crouching Dragon Lake is right in front of us. The Azure Cloud Mansion's estate is located there. 10 days later, Duan Lingtian's family of three, Duan Lingtian, Bai Li Hong, and the others finally arrived at the Azure Cloud Mansion's estate. The Crouching Dragon Lake was faintly discernible. Azure Cloud Mansion. When they learned that they were about to arrive at the Azure Cloud Mansion, whether it was Bai Li Hong, Feng Wu Dao, Nangong, his brothers, Qin Xiao Shuai, or the others, all of them could not help but look at the Azure Cloud Mansion. The Azure Cloud Mansion was one of the two quasi-third-rate forces in the Debussy Subterranean, and from today onwards, They would enter through their relationship with Duan Lingtian and become one of them. For a moment, they were all excited. With Duan Lingtian, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, leading the way, it was naturally easy for Bai Li Hong, Feng Wu Dao, and the others to enter the Crouching Dragon Lake. Little Fei take Nian back first. Before they made their way to the central main hall of the Azure Cloud Mansion's main mansion, Duan Lingtian said to Li Fei, who was next to him. Li Fei nodded obediently. After bidding farewell to Bai Li Hong and the others, she left with Duan Yin Tian. In the central main hall of the Azure Cloud Mansion's main mansion, this was also the first time Bai Li Hong and the others met Duan Lingtian's father, Duan Rufeng. In the face of the famous mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Rufeng, apart from Xiong Quan, who had been following Duan Lingtian since the beginning, the others seemed a little awkward. However, Duan Rufeng did not put on a haughty attitude in front of Bai Li Hong, Feng Wu Dao, and the others. Instead, he was friendly and amiable. Bai Li Hong and the others gradually relaxed. In the end, they were chatting and laughing as though they were old friends who had reunited for many years. Master Bai Li, Brother Feng, and the rest of you. From now on, all of you can treat this place as your own home. As long as all of you stay in the Azure Cloud Mansion, the Azure Cloud Mansion will protect all of you. Not only that, but will also provide all of you with the best cultivation environment and resources. Duan Rufeng said to Bai Li Hong and the others. All of them were his son's family and friends. As his father, he, naturally, could not neglect them. Thank you, Mansion Master Duan. Upon hearing this, Bai Li Hong and the others quickly expressed their gratitude. Tian come back and look for me after you've settled your senior brother, Uncle Feng, and the others. When Duan Lingtian was about to send Bai Li Hong and the others to rest, his father, Duan Rufeng's voice resonated in his ears as soon as he walked out of the central main hall's door. He could tell his father's voice was a little heavy. At once, Duan Lingtian's heart skipped a beat as an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Although Duan Lingtian was puzzled about the reason his father asked him to come back, he still returned after settling Bai Li Hong and the others down. Father, why did you ask me to come back? Duan Lingtian asked anxiously as he looked at Duan Rufeng as soon as he entered the central main hall again. At this moment, only the father and son were left in the central main hall. Tian there's news about Kerr and my granddaughter. Duan Rufeng said solemnly. Kerr? Upon hearing Duan Rufeng's words, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed immediately. His breathing quickened as well. Father, how's Kerr now? Also, how's my daughter and I? Based on his father's words, it seemed like the child Kerr had given birth to was a girl. However, this was not the main point. What he wanted to know the most was how Kerr and his daughter were doing. Kerr and the child are fine for the time being. Duan Rufeng said again. They're fine for the time being? Duan Lingtian frowned. Father, what do you mean by that? Duan Rufeng sighed. According to the information I've gotten from someone, both Kerr and my granddaughter are now imprisoned by the Zoroastrianism Law Enforcement Hall. They're just waiting for the leader of Zoroastrianism to come out of his closed-door cultivation. Then, the Zoroastrianism Law Enforcement Hall will decide the fate of Kerr and her mother. Based on the current situation, it's very difficult for Kerr and her mother to survive. What? Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically. Kerr and his daughter were imprisoned by the Law Enforcement Hall of Zoroastrianism? Father, is the information accurate? After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian calmed himself down slightly before he looked at Duan Rufeng and asked. It's 100% accurate, Duan Rufeng said confidently. If the Watcher had helped him to obtain this information, he did not dare to believe it completely. However, the problem was this information was told to him by the elusive the Oracle Man. The Oracle Man who had helped the Azure Cloud Mansion lure Xiezong, the elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism, away had come to the Azure Cloud Mansion a few days ago. Apart from telling him that Xiezong had returned to the Upper Province, he also told him about Kerr and their daughter. Father, can you tell me who told you this? Duan Lingtian asked. Tian the person who told me this is very famous in the Upper and Lower Province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. People call him the Oracle Man. Duan Rufeng said. The Oracle Man? Duan Lingtian was shocked. This was because he had heard of the Oracle Man before this. He knew the Oracle Man was famous in the Dao Martial Saintland for his ability in divination. It was rumored that the Oracle Man was a man of his word. He had never lied before. The people in the Dao Martial Saintland even gave him the title of Living Celestial. Father, you know the Oracle Man? Duan Lingtian was shocked. He did not expect his father to know the Oracle Man, let alone the Debussyi Subterranean. The Oracle Man was also very famous in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. Even the leaders of the third-rate, second-rate, and first-rate forces in the upper province might not know the Oracle Man. However, his father, a mere leader of a quasi-third-rate force in the lower province, not only knew the Oracle Man, but he seemed to be very familiar with him as well. Otherwise, why would he help him to gather information? He had heard that even the leaders of the three great sects and first-rate forces in the upper province might not be able to order the Oracle Man around. I met him by chance, and we met a few times in the end. We can be considered as acquaintances. Although Duan Ruffing mentioned the Oracle Man, he did not tell Duan Lingtian that the Oracle Man came to look for him many times. This was also the old prophet's order before he left. He could not let Duan Lingtian know about his existence for the time being. Duan Lingtian finally understood. At the same time, his expression turned grave. Since the Oracle Man said so, it must be true. Father, did he say when the sect leader of Zoroastrianism will come out of his closed-door cultivation? Duan Lingtian asked anxiously as he reached the end of his sentence. No, he didn't. Duan Ruffing shook his head. How could he not want to know about this? He had also asked the Oracle Man, but he did not know. There was nothing he could do about it. Father, I plan to leave the Azure Cloud Mansion today and head to the upper province, Duan Lingtian said bluntly to Duan Ruffing after taking a deep breath as though he had made a huge decision. Originally, he had planned to leave after a period of time. However, he was anxious when he learned about the situation of his wife and daughter. He was eager to go to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland to save his wife and daughter. He would not allow anyone to hurt his wife and daughter. Be careful. Duan Ruffing was not surprised by Duan Lingtian's sudden decision. If he was in his son's shoes, he would have made the same decision as well. If it was not for the fact that he was the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion and had a group of friends and family who needed his protection, he would have followed his son to the upper province as well. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded solemnly. Then, he quickly went to see his mother and told her that he would be leaving the Azure Cloud Mansion today to head to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. You're leaving for the upper province today? Tianer, why are you in such a hurry? Li Ro was reluctant to part with him, but she was also surprised by Duan Lingtian's sudden decision. Did something happen? Mother, there's news about Kerr. Duan Lingtian said with a worried and bitter expression on his face. The mother and daughter are currently imprisoned in the Zoroastrianism Enforcement Hall. They're waiting for the sect leader of Zoroastrianism to come out of his closed-door cultivation so that he can decide their fate. Mother, I must save Kerr and our daughter before the sect leader of Zoroastrianism comes out of his closed-door cultivation. Kerr? Mother and daughter? Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Li Ro was excited. Apart from her grandson, she had a granddaughter as well? Chapter 1882. Tianer, don't worry. Kerr and our daughter must be saved, but I don't want anything to happen to you. When Li Ro learned that Duan Lingtian was leaving the Azure Cloud Mansion for the sake of Kerr and their daughter, she no longer tried to dissuade him. She only reminded Duan Lingtian to be careful. Mother, I know. Duan Lingtian nodded. Since then, he had already greeted his parents. His next stop was, naturally, to look for his wife, Li Fei. Go, don't worry. Save little sister Kerr and our daughter as soon as possible. When Li Fei learned that Kerr and their daughter were imprisoned by the Zoroastrianism Enforcement Hall and their lives might be in danger, horror dawned on her immediately. She even urged Duan Lingtian to go to the upper province as soon as possible. I will. After hugging Li Fei for a while, Duan Lingtian finally let go of her before he turned around and left without looking back. He did not dare to look back because he was afraid he would miss them. After all, although he had returned to the Azure Cloud Mansion for a period of time, due to the fact that he had to fulfill the 5-year pact, He had spent most of his time cultivating and rarely spent time with his wife and son. In this respect, he was not a worthy husband, nor a worthy father. After parting ways with Li Fei, Duan Lingtian went to look for Xiao Lan and Bai Yao again. Why you're leaving so soon? Xiao Lan and Bai Yao were shocked when they learned that Duan Lingtian was leaving. A hint of reluctance could be seen in the depth of their beautiful eyes. I must go to the Zoroastrianism as soon as possible and think of a way to save Kerr and our daughter. Otherwise, I'm afraid something will happen to them. Duan Lingtian's voice was filled with worry. Oh, that's right. Jingru hasn't returned yet? After bidding farewell to Xiao Lan and Bai Yao and preparing to leave, Duan Lingtian suddenly thought of Jingru and asked. Jingru was the housekeeper of the mansion he had bought in the Crimson Sky Kingdom's imperial city. She had followed his father to the Azure Cloud Mansion with his mother. He had been in the Azure Cloud Mansion for so long, but he had yet to see Jingru. Jingru, like Xiao Lan and Bai Yao, went out to train. However, although they all went out to train, Jingru did not go with Bai Yao, Xiao Lan, and Bai Yao. Instead, he went to train alone, and there was no news of him until now. No. Xiao Lan and Bai Yao shook their heads. If she comes back, help me say hello to her. Okay, I'm leaving. After Duan Lingtian finished speaking, he simply turned around and left. Xiao Lan and Bai Yao looked at Duan Lingtian's back from afar, their gazes somewhat infatuated. It was only when Duan Lingtian's back disappeared from their sight that they regained their senses one after another. They looked at each other and smiled wryly. If he treats me like how he treats Kerr, I'll die with no regrets, Xiao Lan said softly. Me too. Upon hearing this, Bai Yao nodded in agreement. Naturally, Duan Lingtian did not hear the two women whispering to each other. After leaving Xiao Lan and Bai Yao's residence, Duan Lingtian went to the Azure Cloud platform to look for Gu Li. He had not forgotten the promise he made with Gu Li to go to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land together. The Azure Cloud platform was the place where the most outstanding disciples of the Azure Cloud Mansion gathered. If it was before, perhaps Duan Lingtian would be interested in the Azure Cloud platform. However, his current strength had far surpassed those Azure Cloud Mansion's disciples in the Azure Cloud platform. Naturally, he was no longer interested in the Azure Cloud platform. Junior brother Lingtian. Gu Li was, naturally, surprised by Duan Lingtian's arrival. What's going on? Since Duan Lingtian had personally come to look for him, something must have happened. However, he could not figure out what it was. Senior brother Gu Li, prepare yourself. I'll come and look for you in an hour. We'll leave the Azure Cloud Mansion and go to the upper province. I'll go and bid farewell to the others before I look for you. Duan Lingtian did not beat around the bush and left without waiting for Gu Li's reply. He still had to bid farewell to Bai Li Hong, Feng Wu Dao, and the others. I'll see you in the central main hall in an hour. While Gu Li had a puzzled expression on his face, Duan Lingtian's voice sounded again and entered Gu Li's ears. Junior brother Lingtian seems a little off. Forget it. I'll find out the reason why he's in such a hurry to leave for the upper province in an hour. Gu Li furrowed his brows at first, then relaxed them as he muttered, Junior brother, you're leaving today? Bai Li Hong was not the only one who found it strange when he found out Duan Lingtian was leaving for the upper province today. Even Feng Wu Dao and the others found it strange as well. In fact, when they were on their way here, Duan Lingtian had said many times that he would only leave for the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land after a period of time. However, at this moment, Duan Lingtian seemed to have forgotten what he had said earlier. The situation is a little special. Duan Lingtian explained with a bitter expression on his face when he saw the puzzled expression on Bai Li Hong and the others' faces. I've just received news about Kerr, so I'm in a hurry to go to the upper province to look for her. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, realization dawned on Bai Li Hong and the others. If that was the case, everything would make sense now. After bidding farewell to Bai Li Hong and the others, more than half an hour had passed. When Duan Lingtian made his way to the central main hall, he discovered Gu Li was already waiting for him there. Junior brother, why are you in such a hurry to leave the Azure Cloud Mansion and head to the upper province? Did something happen? There must be something fishy about this. Gu Li felt something must have happened since Duan Lingtian was in such a hurry to leave. Soon after, he obtained the answer he wanted from Duan Lingtian. After he obtained the answer, he urged Duan Lingtian, junior brother Lingtian, let's go. Subsequently, Duan Lingtian and Guli left the Azure Cloud Mansion together and headed north. The passage from the Debussy subterranean to the upper province was in that direction. The Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters is over there. At some point, Guli broke the silence and pointed to the left as he spoke to Duan Lingtian. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian immediately looked over as well. However, he could not see anything clearly due to the rising dust and smoke in the distance. Naturally, Guli could not see clearly as well. However, he knew the rough location of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters. Boom, boom, boom. All of a sudden, a deafening thunderous sound resonated from the place that Duan Lingtian and Guli had to pass. As they got closer, the thunderous sound became louder and louder. Someone's fighting? Duan Lingtian and Guli glanced at each other, and their faces revealed surprise. Junior brother Lingtian, should we take a detour or ignore them and go straight ahead? Guli asked as he looked at Duan Lingtian. Let's take a detour. They seem to be quite strong. Duan Lingtian was in a hurry to go to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Due to this reason, it was better to avoid unnecessary trouble. Moreover, based on the loud commotion in front of them, it was obvious the two people fighting were very strong. With Duan Lingtian's current strength, he was certain the two people fighting were at the exemplary saint stage or above. Moreover, they were not just at the early exemplary saint stage. All right. Since Duan Lingtian wanted to take a detour, Guli, naturally, did not have any objections. Currently, he would follow Duan Lingtian's lead. However, just as Duan Lingtian and Guli were about to take a detour, a loud laughter resonated in front of them. Fengbui, when you humiliated me that day, did you think this day would come? Zhu Luqi, even if you kill me today, you won't be able to escape death in the future. Those who cultivate the devouring dark devil technique are destined to die. Another voice resonated in the air. However, compared to the former's voice, the latter's voice sounded a little dispirited. When Duan Lingtian and Guli heard the voice, they were stunned. They looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. This was because they were familiar with the voice. It's Zhu Luqi. Guli sucked in a cold breath. It's indeed Palace Master Zhu. Duan Lingtian nodded. He could tell the voice belonged to Zhu Luqi, the palace master of the mystical sky mansion's Heaven Palace. Based on his words, it was obvious he was fighting with Fengbui. Moreover, based on Fengbui's words, it was obvious he was no match for Zhu Luqi. Let's go. Although Duan Lingtian knew who was fighting, he still decided to take a detour. After all, Zhu Luqi was no longer the palace master of the mystical sky mansion's Heaven Palace. Who knew if he would make a move on him and Guli since he had cultivated the devouring dark devil technique? He was not sure how strong Zhu Luqi was currently. Due to this reason, he decided not to take the risk. Yes, Guli had similar thoughts as Duan Lingtian. Due to this reason, he immediately took a detour with Duan Lingtian. Boom, boom, boom. Another series of loud noises resonated in the air. When it entered Duan Lingtian and Guli's ears, the sound grew louder and louder. In the end, it stopped abruptly. It's over, Guli said. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Based on Zhu Luqi's tone and Fengbui's tone earlier, it seems like Fengbui isn't a match for Zhu Luqi now. Guli said again. Do you think Palace Master Zhu would show himself and fight with Fengbui if he's not confident he can defeat him? Duan Lingtian shook his head. He felt Guli had asked a meaningless question. When Guli heard this, he realized his question was a little redundant. He could not help but smile awkwardly. Whoosh! All of a sudden, Duan Lingtian, who had sharp ears, heard the faint sound of wind whistling. Following that, the sound of wind whistling grew louder and louder. Oh no! Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically. At the same time, Guli's expression changed as well when he noticed the commotion behind him. Duan Lingtian? Guli? It was as though a gust of wind had blown past Duan Lingtian and Guli. In the next instant, a figure appeared in front of both of them. It was an old man. This old man was no stranger to Duan Lingtian and Guli. He was none other than Zhu Luqi, the former palace master of mystical sky mansion's Heaven Palace. At this moment, Zhu Luqi stood in front of Duan Lingtian and Guli, looking at both of them expressionlessly. Palace Master Zhu, it's been a long time. Chapter 1883. When Zhu Luqi saw Duan Lingtian again, he no longer addressed Duan Lingtian as Lingtian. Instead, he addressed him as Duan Lingtian. Although Duan Lingtian looked different from before, he could still guess that the young man in front of him was the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, Duan Lingtian, through Guli. He was also the former #1 genius among the younger generation in the mystical sky mansion, Lingtian. Ever since Duan Lingtian went to the dragons to fulfill the 5-year pact, and the fact that Guli was by the side of the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion was exposed, Duan Lingtian's fake identity surfaced as well. The #1 genius among the younger generation in the mystical sky mansion, Lingtian. The genius who had shocked all the quasi-third-rate forces in the lower province with his innate talent was actually the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. This news spread like wildfire when the 5-year pact came to an end. When other people heard this news, they might only be slightly surprised. However, when Zhu Luqi heard this news, his reaction was completely different from others. This was because he was originally the palace master of mystical sky mansion's Heaven Palace, and Duan Lingtian was in the Heaven Palace. He could be considered to have interacted with Duan Lingtian before. However, it did not cross his mind even in his dreams that the monstrous genius Duan Lingtian was actually the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. What? Aren't you afraid of me? Zhu Luqi asked expressionlessly as he waved the bloody head in his hand in front of the calm Duan Lingtian. Although more than half of the head in his hand was covered in blood, Duan Lingtian and Guli still recognized it as the head of Feng Bui, the deputy leader of Mountain Shade Black Market. Not only was Feng Bui killed by Zhu Luqi, but his head was also torn off. It was truly tragic. Why should I be afraid? Duan Lingtian asked in response to Zhu Luqi's question. Zhu Luqi and Duan Lingtian were speechless. Both of them just stared at each other. They were not in a hurry, but Guli, who was standing at the side, became anxious. Guli hurriedly transmitted his voice to Duan Lingtian. Junior brother Lingtian, Zhu is no longer the past palace master of our mystical sky mansion. He has cultivated the devouring dark devil technique. He's now a devil cultivator who has killed people like flies. You mustn't do anything rash. If you anger him, we'll be done for. At this moment, Guli was worried Duan Lingtian would provoke Zhu Luqi. Since Zhu Luqi was able to kill Feng Bui, the deputy leader of Mountain Shade Black Market, it meant his current cultivation base was either at the Mastery Exemplary Saint stage or at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage with half a foot in the Mastery Exemplary Saint stage. Such a person was not someone he could deal with at all. As for Duan Lingtian, even if he used all his techniques and his movement divine ability, his speed would only be at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage. His attack was far from being at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage. This could be seen from how Duan Lingtian dodged Di Zhu's attack during the 5-year pact. For this reason, he did not think Duan Lingtian was a match for Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi was not like Di Zhu. He was a powerhouse at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage and above. He was not like Di Zhu, who was half-baked at the Intermediate Exemplary Saint stage, who had used an inherited divine ability that had a huge side effect. Palace Master Zhu pulled Feng Bui's head off to announce to everyone in the Dao Martial Saintland that you've killed Feng Bui. In the end, it was Duan Lingtian who broke the silence first. That's right. Zhu Luqi nodded. Duan Lingtian, I have to admit that you're really smart. However, aren't you worried I'll kill you? In the end, Zhu Luqi's eyes gleamed sharply. Will you? Duan Lingtian asked back. Zhu Luqi did not expect Duan Lingtian to be so calm. He was rendered speechless. While he was speechless, he shook his head. No, isn't that enough? Duan Lingtian smiled nonchalantly. How are Fei Xian and the others? Zhu Luqi asked after taking a deep breath. They're doing very well. Before Duan Lingtian could reply, Guli had already chimed in. Previously, after you left the mystical sky mansion, they were put in a difficult position by the people from the Zhao clan. It was junior brother Lingtian who stood up for them. He even signed a death pact with the people from the Zhao clan and killed them. Since then, although everyone knows they no longer have you as their master, they no longer made things difficult for them. Gu Li's words sounded as though he was asking for credit. That was exactly what he thought. In his opinion, as long as Zhu Luqi was grateful to Duan Lingtian for this matter, he would not make a move on them. Up until now, Zhu Luqi did not seem to have any intention of making a move on them. However, they had to guard against him. After all, one's heart could sail the ship for 10,000 years. Thank you. After listening to Gu Li's words, Zhu Luqi's expression returned to normal. Then, he looked at Duan Lingtian and bowed slightly to express his gratitude. Palace Master Zhu, there's no need for this. Wang Feixian is my friend. Even if she's not your disciple, I won't stand by and do nothing about her. Duan Lingtian waved his hand. No matter what, I still have to thank you. I, Zhu Luqi, have always made a clear distinction between gratitude and grudges. Zhu Luqi said solemnly. I can see that. Duan Lingtian nodded solemnly as he looked at the bloody head in Zhu Luqi's hand. If he did not make a clear distinction between gratitude and grudges, why would Zhu Luqi abandon himself and cultivate the Devil Dao cultivation method, the devouring dark devil technique that was despised by everyone just to kill Feng Bu-yi? However, I really didn't expect you to be the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Duan Lingtian, you've deceived everyone, including me. Zhu Luqi seemed to have recalled something as he looked at Duan Lingtian and changed the topic. Although he said that, based on Zhu Luqi's expression, it was apparent he did not blame Duan Lingtian. Palace Master Zhu, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. I didn't deceive all of you. Duan Lingtian shook his head. When I was still in the mystical sky mansion, although I knew my father was in the WCI subterranean, I didn't know he was the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. After I found out I was the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion, I left the mystical sky mansion to reunite with my family in the Azure Cloud Mansion. That's how it is. Gu Li nodded and quickly spoke up for Duan Lingtian. So that's how it is. Zhu Luqi finally understood. In that case, I've really misunderstood you. It was apparent Zhu Luqi did not doubt Duan Lingtian's words. Indeed, there was no reason for Duan Lingtian to lie to him. Palace Master Zhu, you must have cultivated the devouring dark devil technique purely for the sake of revenge, right? Duan Lingtian asked as he looked at Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi did not expect Duan Lingtian would suddenly ask about this. His eyes narrowed slightly. Junior brother Lingtian. Gu Li was anxious and hurriedly transmitted his voice. Why are you asking him about this? In Gu Li's view, the devouring dark devil technique was like a scar on Zhu Luqi's body. It would be fine if no one uncovered it, but once someone did, it would most likely cause Zhu Luqi to fly into a rage out of humiliation. And now, Duan Lingtian's actions were akin to exposing Zhu Luqi's scars. Yes. However, to Gu Li's surprise, in the face of Duan Lingtian's question, Zhu Luqi pondered for a moment before nodding. Do you regret it? Duan Lingtian asked again. So I don't regret it, but after killing him, I do regret it a little. Glancing at Feng Bu-yi's head in his hand, Zhu Luqi sighed. So what if you regret it now? Could it be that you can cultivate without devouring the essence and blood of young women? Duan Lingtian shook his head. Of course I can. To Duan Lingtian's surprise, Zhu Luqi nodded. The devouring dark devil technique was originally cultivated by devouring the power of the moon at night. It was a relatively normal technique of the Devil Dao. However, later on, someone created a shortcut. As long as you devour the essence and blood of young women to cultivate, the speed of your cultivation is several times faster than normal cultivation. Now that I've taken my revenge, I won't take any shortcuts in the future. Zhu Luqi muttered as he looked at Feng Bu-yi's head in his hand. I hope Palace Master Zhu can do it. Duan Lingtian looked deeply at Zhu Luqi before he called out to Gu Li. Without saying goodbye to Zhu Luqi, he left directly. This time, they did not take a detour. Instead, they headed straight north. Looking at Duan Lingtian and Duan Lingtian's disappearing silhouettes, Zhu Luqi finally made his move. He brought Feng Bu-yi's head to the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters. Thud. A soft sound resonated in the air, shocking the few guards at the entrance of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters. What's that? When they looked over, they saw a huge head on the ground not far away. It was a human head just like theirs. Immediately, they were shocked again. Please tell Leader Dugu that this is a big gift from me, Zhuluchi, to the Mountain Shade Black Market. Before the few guards at the entrance of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters could see the face of the head, a loud voice resonated from the sky. The moment the few guards heard this voice, horror dawned on them. At this moment, if they still did not know that someone had come to provoke the Mountain Shade Black Market, they would have lived their lives in vain. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Accompanied by a whistling sound that sounded like the wind, it was the patrolling disciples above the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters who heard the sound earlier. They immediately soared into the air and shot toward the source of the sound, intending to find the person who provoked the Mountain Shade Black Market. Unfortunately, the person seemed to have left as soon as the voice left his mouth. Due to this reason, the patrolling disciples of the Mountain Shade Black Market could not find any trace of him. Lord Deputy Leader. At this moment, the few guards at the entrance of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters finally saw the face of the head on the ground. Looking at the face on the head, it was none other than the deputy leader of the Mountain Shade Black Market, Fengbu Yi. The deputy leader was killed? Not only was he killed, but his head was also chopped off. How great is the enmity! The guards were horrified. They did not expect there would be someone in the WCI subterranean who dared to provoke the Mountain Shade Black Market so openly. Was that person not afraid of death? That's right. Earlier, the owner of the voice seemed to call himself Zhuluchi. Chapter 1884. Zhuluchi. Currently, this name was known by everyone in the WCI subterranean. Greater than or equal to. Earlier, the few guards at the entrance of the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters had yet to regain their senses. Now that they had regained their senses, they looked at each other and saw the shock and disbelief in each other's eyes. Zhuluchi, the former palace master of Mystical Sky Mansion's Heaven Palace? The person who cultivated the devouring dark devil technique? There seems to be a rumor that the reason Zhuluchi cultivated the devouring dark devil technique was to look for vice leader foam. Initially, I thought the rumor was unreliable, but now it seems like it's true. Vice leader Feng was really killed by Zhuluchi. Soon after, the news of Vice Leader Feng Buyi's death spread throughout the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters. For this reason, the Mountain Shade Black Market's high-ranking officials, led by the leader of Mountain Shade Black Market, Dugu, had gathered together to discuss how to kill Zhuluchi to avenge Feng Buyi. Meanwhile, after leaving the Mountain Shade Black Market's headquarters, Zhuluchi returned to his residence. His residence was located in a valley in a remote mountain range. There were two simple wooden houses in the valley. Based on the wood used to build the houses, it was obvious they had just been built. One of the wooden houses belonged to him. The other wooden house belonged to Su Jing, the former young mansion master of Rising Sky Mansion. Currently, Su Jing's soul was almost fully recovered, and he was trying to merge it back into his body. Once it completely merged with his body, he would be reborn and see the light of day again. Creak. Suddenly, the door of the wooden house opened. You're back? Although Su Jing's soul had not completely returned to his body, he could use his divine consciousness at will. Due to this reason, he could easily sense the person who had entered. Yes, the person who had entered was none other than Zhuluchi. However, currently, Zhuluchi's eyes were gleaming coldly when he looked at Su Jing. Didn't you go to seek revenge from Feng Buyi? What happened in the end? Su Jing asked. It went very smoothly. He's already dead. Zhuluchi said indifferently. That's good. As long as I'm fully recovered, I'll pass the last part of the devouring dark devil technique to you. In the future, if the two of us join hands, we can go anywhere in the world. Su Jing's words were filled with excitement. I'm afraid you won't have that chance. Zhuluchi suddenly said. Stop joking. Su Jing thought that Zhuluchi was joking. I'm not joking. Zhuluchi's tone gradually turned cold. Don't forget that both of you swore on the lightning penalty oath before I passed the devouring dark devil technique to you and Zhaoji. Unless I make you my enemy, you're not allowed to kill me. If you kill me, you will be violating the lightning punishment oath. You will die without a doubt. Su Jing did not seem to be worried at all. Don't worry. I won't kill you. I've thought about it. Even if I don't kill you, I can make sure you'll never see the light of day again. Zhu Luqi was even less worried. What are you trying to do? Finally, Su Jing's voice changed. He sounded slightly panicked. Based on Zhu Luqi's tone, it did not seem like he was joking. Tell me, if you're turned into a human stick, what's the use of your soul returning to your body? Zhu Luqi seemed to be talking to Su Jing, but at the same time, he seemed to be talking to himself. No, no, you can't do that. You can't. You can't. You can't. Su Jing was completely flustered and anxious. When he sent another voice transmission, he sounded slightly hysterical. However, Zhu Luqi ignored Su Jing's words. He raised his hand and chopped off one of Su Jing's arms. You don't want the last part of the devouring dark devil technique anymore? Su Jing's voice transmission sounded as though he was shouting. Although Su Jing's soul had not returned to his body and he could not feel any pain, his divine consciousness could still detect that one of his arms had been chopped off. In the future, I plan to devour the moonlight force to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique. Do you think I still need the last part? Zhu Luqi said indifferently as he chopped off one of Su Jing's arms. In the end, under Su Jing's desperate cry, Zhu Luqi turned him into a human stick and threw him into a secluded mountain cave that he had prepared beforehand. Then, he filled up the cave and sealed Su Jing inside forever. As for Su Jing's soul that had almost recovered, he had also injured it again. Not only that, but he also left behind an extremely corrosive devil chi that constantly corroded Su Jing's soul, preventing him from recovering. Due to the lightning penalty oath, he could not kill Su Jing. For this reason, he could only do this. Mansion Master. Although I can't kill him due to the lightning penalty oath, it's impossible for him to bring any trouble to the mystical sky mansion. This can be considered the last thing I, Zhu Luqi, will do for the mystical sky mansion before I leave the lower province. After everything was done, Zhu Luqi rose into the air and looked in the direction of the mystical sky mansion's estate as he muttered to himself. As soon as he finished speaking, he headed straight for the north. Before he killed Fengbu Yi, he had already made up his mind. After killing Fengbu Yi, he would get rid of Su Jing, who was a threat to the mystical sky mansion, before leaving the WCI subterranean and heading to the upper province. He wanted to start a new life in the upper province. With the devouring dark devil technique, he was confident he would be able to make a name for himself even if he did not take a shortcut. At this moment, he felt the blood in his body that had been dormant for many years was boiling again. It was as though he had returned to the time when he was young. His blood was boiling, and he was filled with passion. After traveling for a few days, when they were about to arrive at the passage from the lower province to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland, two familiar figures entered Zhu Luqi's eyes. It's them. They're planning to go to the upper province? As Zhu Luqi muttered to himself, he managed to figure out what was going on. The two figures that appeared in front of Zhu Luqi were none other than Duan Lingtian and Guli, whom Zhu Luqi had met earlier. Whoosh! In just a flash, Zhu Luqi passed by Duan Lingtian and Guli and appeared in front of them. Palace Master Zhu? Duan Lingtian had long noticed the commotion behind him. However, since the person did not seem hostile, he did not pay much attention to it. Now that the person had appeared in front of him in just a flash and revealed his face, he was shocked. What do you want? When they saw Zhu Luqi again, compared to the shock on Duan Lingtian's face, horror dawned on Guli. He thought Zhu Luqi regretted letting him and Duan Lingtian go that day, so he came to kill them. Duan Lingtian, are all of you planning to go to the upper province? Zhu Luqi asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded before he asked in surprise. Don't tell me Palace Master Zhu is planning to go to the upper province as well? Yes. Zhu Luqi nodded. Now that I've avenged myself, there's nothing left for me to worry about in the lower province. For this reason, I plan to start a new life in the upper province. If you don't mind, why don't we travel together? Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian did not reply to Zhu Luqi directly. Instead, he looked at Guli and waited for Guli's opinion. He was doing this out of respect for Guli's decision. After all, Duan Lingtian was not alone. If he was alone, he would not mind Zhu Luqi traveling with him. After all, Zhu Luqi no longer planned to cultivate the devouring dark devil technique through shortcuts after he had avenged himself. It could be said that he had turned over a new leaf by cultivating the devouring dark devil technique normally. As the saying went, a prodigal son is more valuable than gold. Since Zhu Luqi no longer committed such atrocious acts, Duan Lingtian did not dislike Zhu Luqi. Duan Lingtian's request for Gu Li's opinion warmed Gu Li's heart. Junior brother Lingtian, you decide. However, Gu Li gave the choice to Duan Lingtian in the end. Palace Master Zhu, we'll travel with you. Duan Lingtian said to Zhu Luqi. Zhu Luqi was excited. After all, if he went to the upper province alone, he would be all alone when he arrived at the upper province. He would not know anyone and would have to start from scratch. However, if he had a powerful companion from the beginning, everything would be different. At the very least, the journey would be much easier. At the same time, although Gu Li no longer said anything, a hint of wariness could be seen in his eyes when he looked at Zhu Luqi. Naturally, Zhu Luqi noticed this. However, he did not mind it at all. Naturally, he only acted nonchalant on the surface, but he still felt bitter in his heart. Compared to Duan Lingtian, it was obvious his relationship with Gu Li was much closer compared to Duan Lingtian when they were in the mystical sky mansion. Duan Lingtian was only an ordinary Heaven Palace's disciple, while Duan Lingtian was technically his junior nephew in terms of seniority. The three of them traveled and soon arrived near the passage from the lower province to the upper province. What appeared before the three of them was a majestic snowy mountain. Due to its location, this area was covered in snow all year round. Even now, it was still snowing heavily. Elder Lu. At the peak of the snow mountain, Duan Lingtian saw the guardian of the Dao Martial Saintland again. It was Elder Lu, whom he had met in the Azure Cloud Mansion not long ago. When Duan Lingtian took the initiative to greet him, Elder Lu also recognized Duan Lingtian. He was the son of Duan Rufeng, the young mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. Go to the upper province? Elder Lu asked. Yes. Duan Lingtian nodded. Elder Lu, although we know the passage is nearby, we still can't find it after searching for so long. Can you give us some pointers? Follow me. After glancing at Zhu Luqi and Gu Li, who were standing next to Duan Lingtian, Elder Lu said to Duan Lingtian. At the same time, he soared into the air and brought Duan Lingtian and the other two to the mountainside of the lofty snow mountain. The mountainside was covered in snow. Whoosh! Under the watchful eyes of Duan Lingtian and the other two, Elder Lu raised his hand, and a vast energy surged and gathered in his hand. As he swept his hand across the air, the invisible energy swept out like a broom and swept away part of the snow on the mountainside, revealing the entrance of a cave. At first glance, it was completely dark inside the cave. Nothing could be seen. This is the passage from the lower province to the upper province. Chapter 1885. In fact, Gu Li was not the only one who was disappointed. Even Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi were stunned when they saw the entrance of the cave. This was the passage that led to the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland. It was completely different from what they had expected. Although they did not expect it to be so exaggerated, it was not as shabby as this. Perhaps there's another world inside. Duan Lingtian comforted himself. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The watcher, Elder Lu, did not notice the disappointment of Duan Lingtian and the other two. After removing the snow that was blocking the entrance of the cave, he began to make his move one after another. In just a blink of an eye, another 8 cave entrances appeared before Duan Lingtian and the other two. There was a total of 9 cave entrances that appeared on the mountainside of the lofty snowy mountain. From afar, they formed a regular circle. Elder Lu, which one is the passage that leads to the upper province? Gu Li asked as he looked at Elder Lu when he regained his senses. He could faintly sense that things did not seem to be as he had imagined. The saint stones that support the inter-province transportation formation are stored in these 9 caves. Each of them forms an independent Grade 2 formation. After the transportation formation is activated, the 9 Grade 2 formations will activate and consume the saint stones to form the inter-province transportation formation. Once you step into the inter-province transportation formation, You'll enter the passage that leads to the upper province. Elder Lu glanced at Guli indifferently as he explained. At the same time, Elder Lu made his move again. Whoosh! A streak of light shot out from the tip of Elder Lu's finger like an electric snake. How fast? Duan Lingtian only managed to catch a slight trace of the electric snake before it disappeared before his eyes in just a blink of an eye. When Zhu Luqi sensed the energy in the electric snake, he felt chills running up his spine. This was because the electric snake was formed by a force that made his heart palpitate. If it was not aimed at the lofty snowy mountain in front of him, he would not have been able to block it at all, even if he had already taken half a step into the mastery exemplary saint stage. Quintessential saint stage. Is this the strength of a quintessential saint stage powerhouse? Zhu Luqi was shocked, but at the same time, his eyes were filled with fanaticism. He had heard that the guardian of the Tao martial saint land was a quintessential saint stage powerhouse. The current him could not be compared to the previous him. Even if he did not plan to continue using the devouring dark devil technique to devour young women's vital energy and blood to cultivate, he was 100% confident he would be able to break through to the quintessential saint stage in the near future and catch up to the Watcher. Unlike Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi who were shocked, Guli did not notice the lightning snake because his cultivation was weaker. Because of this, he was not as shocked as Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi. Boom! Under the gazes of Zhu Luqi and Duan Lingtian, one after the other, the electric snake landed at the center of the circle formed by the 9 caves. All of a sudden, the accumulated snow there exploded. Immediately after, the 9 originally pitch-black cave entrances lit up at once. 9 waves of powerful auras were emitted from the 9 caves, causing Duan Lingtian and the other 2 to feel quite pressured. What a powerful energy! The saint stones inside are definitely not as simple as third-grade saint stones. In the Debussy Subterranean, a quasi-third-rate force controlled a quasi-third-grade saint stone reserve. A quasi-third-grade saint stone reserve was the best reserve in the Debussy Subterranean. Even the best saint stones produced by this reserve were only third-grade saint stones. Moreover, there were very few of them. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Soon after, Duan Lingtian and the other 2 saw a flash in front of their eyes. 9 beams of light of different colors shot out from the 9 caves. They were like wild horses that had escaped their reins as they shot into the sky in unison. Among the 9 colors, 7 of them were the 7 colors of the rainbow. They were red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and violet. As for the remaining 2 colors, one was black and one was white. Boom! Under the watchful eyes of Duan Lingtian and the other 2, the 9 beams of energy collided and made an earth-shattering sound. Then, the 9 beams of energy collided and merged with each other. In the end, the black and white energies formed a pattern. It was a pattern that was familiar to Duan Lingtian. Tai Chi, yin-yang fish. The pattern of the yin-yang fish floated in the void. Above it, there was an obscure, translucent energy floating. From afar, with the yin-yang fish as the base, the translucent energy formed a cylindrical body. This is the inter-province transportation formation. As long as you step into it, you'll be able to enter the passage from the lower province to the upper province. At the same time, Elder Lu's voice resonated in the air. The passage is neither long nor short. Not only that, but it's also dangerous. However, it's only dangerous for people below the eminent saint stage. Eminent saint stage powerhouses can protect themselves inside. Not only can those who are more powerful protect themselves, but they can also protect their companions. When Elder Lu reached the end of his sentence, he finally stopped speaking. Duan Lingtian and the other 2 immediately shifted their attention to the inter-province transportation formation. As for what Elder Lu said about powerhouses above the eminent saint stage, being able to travel to the passage from the Debussy Subterranean to the upper province with their own strength, they had long heard about it, so they did not find it strange. However, they were more curious about the transportation formation in front of them. Apart from the energy of the saint inscription, there's also the energy of the Tao talisman in this transportation formation. Although they were still far apart, Duan Lingtian could still sense the saint inscription's aura coming from the transportation formation. Apart from that, after he secretly activated his strange pupil, he also saw the faintly discernible talisman in the transportation formation. It was a Tao talisman. In other words, this inter-province transportation formation was formed by the combination of the Saint Inscription's energy and the Tao talisman's energy. Elder Lu. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian looked at Elder Lu and asked the question in his heart, who built this transportation formation? Also, I don't think the saint stones stored in the 9 caves are third-grade saint stones, right? The moment Duan Lingtian opened his mouth, he asked the 2 questions that had been bothering him. He was very curious about what kind of existence could build such a teleportation array. Apart from that, he was also curious about how many saint stones were needed to support the transportation formation and what grade they were. He had a feeling the saint stones used to support the transportation formation were not from the WCI subterranean. Merely third-grade saint stones and quasi-third-grade saint stones should not be able to support the transportation formation. This transportation formation has existed since the Tao Martial Saintland was divided into the Upper Province and Lower Province. At that time, this transportation formation was built under the leadership of a senior at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage who lived in seclusion. Those who participated were all at the 7th form of the Saint Celestial stage or above. There were no less than 10 of them. When Elder Lu reached the end of his sentence, his expression turned solemn. 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Whether it was Duan Lingtian, Gu Li, or Zhu Luqi, all of them could not help but gasp when they heard Elder Lu's words. What was the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage? Such a powerhouse was a powerhouse who had half a foot in the Devata realm. In the Tao Martial Saintland, people referred to those at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage as half-celestials. They were people who had half a foot in the celestial stage. It was said that once a powerhouse at the 9th form of the Saint Celestial stage passed the celestial ascension tribulation and ascended to the Devata realm, he would become a true celestial. Just by listening to Elder Lu's description of the people who participated in the construction of the inter-province transportation formation, Duan Lingtian and the other 2 could tell how huge the project was. It was all thanks to the efforts of the predecessors that the successors were able to enjoy such convenience. The predecessors planted the trees while the successors enjoyed the shade. There was nothing more to it than this. For this reason, Duan Lingtian was filled with awe when he thought about those powerhouses. As for the saint stones that support the inter-province transportation formation, they're all handled by the first-rate forces in the upper province, including the first-rate force behind me. 90% of the saint stones inside are first-grade saint stones, while 10% are quasi-celestial grade saint stones. Elder Lu continued to say, 90% of them are first-grade saint stones? Duan Lingtian gasped. Gu Li and Zhu Luqi were stunned as well. Elder Lu, are quasi-celestial grade saint stones more precious than first-grade saint stones? Duan Lingtian asked solemnly. Yes. Elder Lu nodded and continued to say, quasi-celestial grade saint stones are usually found in quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserves. Naturally, first-grade saint stone reserves would occasionally produce some. The first-rate forces in the upper province basically possess 1 or 2 first-grade saint stone reserves. What about the 3 great sects? Duan Lingtian asked with a glint in his eyes. In the upper province of the Tao Martial Saintland, the 3 great sects were above the first-rate forces. They were also the top forces in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saintland. The 3 great sects? A hint of anger flashed in Elder Lu's eyes when he heard Duan Lingtian's question. The 3 great sects have occupied the only 3 quasi-celestial grade saint stone reserves in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saintland. Moreover, they've also occupied more than 21st grade saint stone reserves. Even so, they still ask us, the first-rate forces, to pay for the saint stones required to support the inter-province transportation formation. They don't even contribute a single cent. The more Elder Lu spoke, the angrier he became. This was his confession as a member of a first-rate force in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saintland. This was his anger as a member of a first-rate force in the upper province of the Tao Martial Saintland. The exploitation by the 3 great sects had caused the people from the first-rate forces to be unable to voice out their anger. As a member of a first-rate force, The anger in Elder Lu's heart had long accumulated. Now that he had taken this opportunity to vent it out, it was uncontrollable. Upon hearing Elder Lu's words, Duan Lingtian frowned. Gu Li and Zhu Luqi frowned as well. The three great sects are too much. They're sitting on so many first-grade saint stones and quasi-celestial grade saint stones, but they're so stingy when it comes to the inter-realm teleportation formation's consumption. Are their saint stones going to their coffins with them? Gu Li was filled with righteous indignation. On the other hand, Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi were much calmer. Although they also felt that the three great sects were a little too much, who asked them to be stronger than the first-rate forces. This was a cruel world where the strong were respected. Chapter 1886. No matter how much the Watcher, Elder Lu, defended the first-rate force behind him, he could only vent in front of Duan Lingtian and the other two. Although venting like this would not change anything, it did calm him down a lot. After all, he had vented out all the frustrations in his heart. Go on. Be careful when you're in the upper province. The upper province is much crueler than you can imagine. If possible, it's best to find a force to rely on. The death rate of sectless cultivators has always been the highest in the upper province. Elder Lu reminded Duan Lingtian solemnly, as he let him enter the inter-province transportation formation. Many years ago, the Dao Martial Saint Land was not divided into two. Due to this reason, there was no division between the upper province and the lower province. However, at that time, the overall strength of the Dao Martial Saint Land was not as strong as it was now. This was because the upper province was an independent realm in the Dao Martial Saint Land. Even if it was just a pseudo-realm, it was still a level higher than the lower province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. The cultivation resources and environment there were not something the original Dao Martial Saint Land could compare to. Under the circumstances where the cultivation resources were limited, the powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land fought to be the first to enter the upper province. Even third-rate forces and above had entered the upper province. Due to this reason, the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land began to prosper. Duan Lingtian's father, Duan Rufeng, was the mansion master of Azure Cloud Mansion. His cultivation base was at the peak of the exemplary saint stage. If he used some of his techniques, he was comparable to an early quintessential saint stage powerhouse. He was also widely acknowledged as one of the two most powerful people in the WCI subterranean. However, although such a strength was not considered weak in the upper province, it was not ranked high at all. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, the most direct ranking for martial, Dao, and devil cultivators was the Supreme Saint ranking. The Supreme Saint ranking was a ranking that existed before the Dao Martial Saint Land was divided into the upper province and the lower province. Duan Lingtian's master, Feng Qingyang, the successor of the seven absolute sects' absolute fog rain, was ranked first on the Supreme Saint ranking. The person who was ranked first on the Supreme Saint ranking was also widely acknowledged as the strongest person in the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was a supreme honor. Ever since the Dao Martial Saint Land was divided into the upper province and the lower province, the powerhouses on the Supreme Saint ranking were all powerhouses from the upper province. The experts from the lower province, including Duan Rufeng and Du Gu, who were ranked last and 1000th on the Supreme Saint ranking, would not be able to make it. He was none other than Elder Xiezong from the Zhuangzi Buddhism sect who had forcefully arrived at the Azure Cloud Mansion and snatched the Devil Seal tablet from Duan Lingtian. As a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, his ranking on the Supreme Saint ranking was below the 500th position. Based on this, one could see how many hidden dragons and crouching tigers there were in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Xiezong was an elder of Zhuangzi Buddhism. However, he couldn't even make it into the top 500 of the Supreme Saint ranking. Although there were many powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land, it was naturally more dangerous. Thank you for your reminder, Elder Lu. Duan Lingtian and the other two knew about the situation in the Dao Martial Saint Land. When they heard Duan Lingtian's reminder, their expressions turned solemn. Go. Elder Lu glanced at the inter-province transportation formation and said to Duan Lingtian and the other two, the inter-province transportation formation will only last for 15 minutes every time it's activated. Duan Lingtian and the other two nodded. Then, the The three of them flew out and entered the inter-province transportation formation almost at the same time. As soon as they entered the inter-province transportation formation, Duan Lingtian felt a gentle energy enveloping him. When the energy completely enveloped him, he discovered his vision had turned dark. When light returned, he was already in a passage formed by a translucent barrier. The passage was very long. He could not see the end of it. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, a piercing sound resonated in Duan Lingtian's ears. It was the passage formed by the translucent barrier. There were electric serpent-like energy wreaking havoc outside. Occasionally, some electric serpent-like energy would pass through the barrier that formed the passage and enter. Naturally, the electric serpent-like energy that passed through the barrier would become extremely small and weak. Even so, it was impossible for powerhouses below the eminent saint stage to survive the electric serpent-like energy. Only powerhouses above the eminent saint stage would be able to protect themselves and face it with ease. So this is the spatial turbulence outside the passage that traverses between realms? Duan Lingtian thought in his heart as he easily dodged the numerous chaotic flows that entered the passageway. The reason he thought so was because Hualao had told him about traversing between realms. One of them was the spatial turbulence. According to Hualao, the spatial turbulence that one would encounter when traversing between low-level realms and the mundane realms was not strong. The powerhouses who stood at the peak of the mundane realms could completely ignore these energies. If they used some techniques, such as setting up a transportation formation or strengthening the passage, they could also weaken these energies. For example, the place where Duan Lingtian was currently at was the passage from the lower province to the upper province. The passageway that was formed by the translucent barrier blocked most of the spatial turbulence's energy. The power of the spatial turbulence that could break in had become very weak. Even the existence of the Great Saint Realm could cope with it. Although Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was at the peak of the eminent saint stage, due to the existence of the Sun True Origin, the energy in his body was no weaker than a powerhouse at the peak of the divine saint stage. Due to this reason, he traversed through the passage as though he was walking on flat ground. Guli was an early divine saint stage martial cultivator. He followed closely behind Duan Lingtian and was as relaxed as Duan Lingtian. As for Zhu Luqi, there was no need to mention him. A powerhouse who had half a foot in the mastery exemplary saint stage could completely ignore the weakened spatial turbulence's energy. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Duan Lingtian and the other two looked at each other. In the end, they reached a consensus without saying a word. They flew to the other end of the passage at an extremely fast speed. After an unknown amount of time, it felt like it was only a moment, but it also felt like a century had passed. As he flew forward, Duan Lingtian discovered his body was once again enveloped by a gentle energy. Just like before, when his body was completely enveloped by the gentle energy, he felt his vision turn black. When he regained his vision, he discovered he had appeared in a vast herb garden. The reason he discovered he had appeared in the herb garden was because he could smell a refreshing medicinal fragrance as soon as his vision lit up. When he shifted his attention to his surroundings, he discovered spirit herbs that were planted everywhere. Whoosh, whoosh. When Duan Lingtian was looking at the herb garden before him, the sound of wind whistling rang next to him. Guli and Zhu Luqi had arrived. When both of them discovered they were in the herb garden, they were stunned as well. There are so many spirit herbs here. Is the land in the upper province really so magical? Zhu Luqi was shocked. In the Debussy subterranean, the conditions for spirit herbs to grow were extremely strict. Even if one wanted to plant them artificially, one would have to find soil that was suitable for the growth of spirit herbs. Soil like that was extremely valuable in the lower province. It was extremely rare. For this reason, the large amount of spirit herbs that appeared before their eyes undoubtedly meant one thing. The soil that these spirit herbs were planted on was extremely rare spirit soil that was extremely valuable in the lower province. So much spirit soil, and so many spirit herbs. Yes, yes, we're here. At the same time, Guli had also regained his senses. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at the spirit soil and spirit herbs around him. It was as though these things were going to be his. Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi's expressions turned solemn immediately. They looked at each other and saw the uneasiness in each other's eyes. Senior brother Guli, these spirit soil and spirit herbs must have an owner. Otherwise, it's impossible for them to grow so neatly. Moreover, a person who owns such a large herb garden must not be someone to be trifled with even in the upper province. Duan Lingtian reminded Guli as he gasped inwardly. Upon hearing this, Guli began to study the spirit herbs around him again. Soon after, he discovered that these spirit herbs were distributed in a regular manner. Moreover, each spirit herb was planted at a certain interval. It seemed like they were very particular about this. Guli's expression changed immediately. They really have an owner. Damn it, where have we been transported to? The inter-province transportation formation in the Debussy subterranean was fixed in one place. The inter-province transportation formation in the upper province of the Dao Marshal Saint Land was fixed in many places in the upper province. However, no matter if it was the upper provinces or the lower provinces transportation formation, it was not certain where one would be transported to once one stepped into it. However, one thing was certain was that those who stepped into the transportation formation together would be transported to the same place. This was the case for Duan Lingtian, Guli, and Zhu Luqi. Let's go. Without any hesitation, Duan Lingtian immediately soared up into the air. At the same time, he did not forget to call out to Guli and Zhu Luqi. He was afraid the owner of this herb garden would discover them and anger them if they continued to stay here. No matter if this herb garden belonged to an individual or a force, it was not something they could afford to offend. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Guli and Zhu Luqi, who realized they were standing on a time bomb, did not hesitate and immediately soared up into the air to follow Duan Lingtian. Just as Duan Lingtian and the other two were about to leave the herb garden as fast as they could, a voice suddenly rang out. "Since you're already here, there's no need for you to leave." A voice suddenly resonated in the air. The voice was old, but there was an unquestionable tone to it. In the next instant, Duan Lingtian sensed an invisible energy that seemed to have transformed into a mountain before it fell on his head. Boom! At this moment, the terrifying energy that surged out of the invisible energy destroyed all of the sun true origin that surged out of Duan Lingtian's body and directly slammed him into the herb garden in a wretched manner. Apart from that, Guli was also in a similar situation. Chapter 1887. After they landed, horror dawned on Guli and Zhu Luqi immediately. Greater than over equal to the owner of the voice had not even shown himself, but he had already reduced them to such a wretched state. Even a powerhouse at the peak of the quintessential saint stage might not possess such a technique. For this reason, the owner of the voice was most likely a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse. When they realized they had angered a Saint Celestial stage powerhouse, as soon as they arrived in the upper province, fear rose in their hearts. Fear could be seen in their eyes. "Senior, we didn't mean to offend you. We didn't mean to intrude into your herb garden." After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian calmed the surging vital energy and blood in his body before he said politely to the sky, "We've just arrived from the lower province, and as soon as we entered the inter-province transportation formation, we were sent here. We promised that we didn't destroy a single blade of grass or tree here." Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Guli chimed in, "That's right, senior. Now that we know this herb garden has an owner, we're planning to leave. We don't want to cause any trouble. Senior, please let us leave on account that we didn't mean to offend you." Although Zhu Luqi did not say anything, a hint of desire could be seen in his eyes. It was not that he was unwilling to speak, but Duan Lingtian and Guli had already said everything he wanted to say. However, he did not hear any reply. Duan Lingtian and the other two looked at each other and smiled wryly in unison. At the same time, anxiety rose in their hearts. That powerhouse had not even shown himself, but he had already reduced them to such a wretched state. This was enough to show how powerful that powerhouse was. He was not someone they could go against. "I'm no match for such a powerhouse even if I use all my techniques and the Jasper Celestial Sword," Duan Lingtian thought to himself. "You're from the lower province?" After a short while, the aged voice sounded out once more. and its tone carried a questioning tone. Senior, we're really from the lower province. If we didn't suddenly appear in your herb garden and trespassed from outside, how could you not notice us with your strength? As Guli responded, he did not forget to flatter the owner of the voice. Since you entered by accident, I can't blame you. I'll spare your lives. The old voice sounded, and Duan Lingtian and the other two heaved a sigh of relief, knowing that their lives were saved. With the other party's strength, killing them was as easy as killing chickens or cutting grass. If that's the case, Senior, we'll take our leave now. Duan Lingtian and the other two stood up. Guli cupped his hands towards the void, and without waiting for a reply, he took the lead and stepped into the air. Boom. However, just as he stepped into the air, Guli was pressed down by an invisible force that appeared out of thin air, causing Guli to feel a little embarrassed and angry. Senior, didn't you say you wouldn't blame us and would spare our lives? With your strength and status, you shouldn't be toying with us, right? As he spoke, Guli's tone became more sorrowful. Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi could not help but frown. The powerhouse hiding in the dark would not go back on his words, right? If the other party went back on his words, there was really nothing they could do. After all, with the strength of the three of them, even if they joined forces, they would not be enough to fill the gaps between the other party's teeth. I said I wouldn't blame you and would spare your lives. Naturally, I wouldn't harm your lives. However, since you've been sent here through the inter-province transportation formation, it's enough to show that you're fated with me. It just so happens that the few servants who helped me take care of the herb garden suddenly died a few days ago. Help me take care of the herb garden for a period of time, and when I find new servants, you can leave on your own. The old voice continued to sound and entered the ears of Duan Lingtian and the other two, causing their expressions to change drastically. Based on the other party's words, it seemed like he wanted them to stay and be servants. Moreover, they would be servants who could die at any time. Why? Are you unwilling? If you're unwilling, I'll send you on your way. The voice sounded again, and it was filled with a hint of coldness. Don't be so ungrateful. You've just arrived in the upper province, and if you wander around outside, you might be killed one day. Not only will you be safe in my herb garden, but the cultivation environment is also much better than outside. Do you know how many people dream of coming here to cultivate, but I've turned them away? Following that, the tone of the voice changed. As the saying went, give a slap and give a jujube. Upon hearing the first half of the sentence, Duan Lingtian and the other two's expressions changed drastically. At the same time, they knew they had no choice but to be servants in the herb garden. When they heard the second half of the sentence, they instinctively sensed the heaven and earth spirit energy. In the next moment, they discovered the heaven and earth spirit energy was indeed very dense. It was much denser than the lower province where they were previously. However, since they had not been to other places in the upper province, they did not know if the cultivation environment here was much better than the cultivation environment outside. Duan Lingtian, who was sensing the heaven and earth spirit energy, soon discovered the heaven and earth spirit energy resonated with the herbs in the herb garden. The aura released by the herbs also merged with the heaven and earth spirit energy, causing it to become denser. It seems like he didn't lie to us, Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Although Duan Lingtian had such thoughts, he did not plan to stay here to cultivate. Even if the cultivation environment here was the best in the upper province, he did not want to stay here for long. The reason he left the lower province and came to the upper province was to rescue his wife and daughter who were trapped by Zoroastrianism. What he wanted to do was to rescue his wife and daughter from Zoroastrianism. Although it was impossible for him to kill his way into Zoroastrianism to rescue his wife and daughter with his current strength, he still planned to join Zoroastrianism first before making a long-term plan. He believed it would not be difficult for him to join Zoroastrianism with his current strength. However, if he was imprisoned here, it would mean he would not be able to join Zoroastrianism for the time being. In fact, he might not even be able to make it to Zoroastrianism alive. After all, according to the owner of the herb garden, a few of the servants in the herb garden had suddenly died. If a servant suddenly died, he could blame it on himself. However, if a few servants suddenly died at the same time, He could not help but wonder if there was a problem with the herb garden or the owner of the herb garden. Senior. After taking a deep breath, Duan Lingtian said to the air, I came to the upper province because I have something urgent to do. If you're willing to let us go, I, Duan Lingtian, will definitely remember your kindness and repay you in the future. I'll accept your kindness as well, Senior. Gu Li and Zhu Luqi chimed in as well. Although they did not have a clear goal in coming to the upper province, they knew it was not a good thing to stay in this herb garden as servants. If they could leave, they wanted to leave as soon as possible. For some reason, they felt this herb garden and the owner of the herb garden were a little strange, especially when the owner of the herb garden said that a few servants in the herb garden had suddenly died. They could not help but shudder. They were afraid they would follow in the footsteps of the former servants. I know what all of you are thinking. The previous few choresmen couldn't withstand the rich heaven and earth spirit energy in the herb garden because they hadn't even stepped into the eminent saint stage yet. In the end, they exploded and died. However, they also stayed there for 10 years before suddenly dying. The owner of the herb garden still did not show himself, but his voice clearly entered Duan Lingtian and the other two's ears again. With your cultivation base, nothing will happen to you even if you stay here for 10 years. After 10 years, I'll naturally let all of you leave. It's decided then. If I find out that all of you have the audacity to escape in the next 10 years, don't blame me for not showing mercy. The voice resonated again before it stopped abruptly. No matter how Gu Li shouted, the owner of the herb garden no longer responded. It was as though he had completely disappeared. Junior brother Ling Tian, what should we do now? In the end, Gu Li could only look at Duan Lingtian helplessly and ask, what else can we do now? Since he's so adamant, we can only obediently stay here for now. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. Among the three of them, he was definitely the one who wanted to leave the herb garden the most since he was in a hurry to save his wife and daughter from Zoroastrianism. Who knew if the sect leader of Zoroastrianism would come out of his closed-door cultivation as time passed? At that time, the Zoroastrianism would decide the life and death of his wife and daughter. The moment he thought of this, he became extremely anxious. However, based on the current situation, what was the use of him being anxious? The strength of the herb garden's owner was not something they could contend with at all. It was not practical for them to forcefully leave. For this reason, they could only take one step at a time and see if they could find an opportunity to leave. Let's stay here for now. Who knows, we might be able to find an opportunity to leave in a few days. Zhu Luqi's voice entered Duan Lingtian and Gu Li's ears in a timely manner. Both of them nodded in agreement. This was the only thing they could do now. They had no other choice. Just like that, Duan Lingtian and the other two stayed in the herb garden. In the beginning, they did not feel anything about the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden. However, after staying for a while, they discovered that the spirit herbs and spirit medicines were of a high grade. Moreover, even Hua Lao said that if these spirit herbs and spirit medicines were given to him, he would most likely be able to completely repair the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Even with the help of the entire Azure Cloud Mansion, they only managed to repair a small portion of the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Hua Lao, are you sure? These spirit herbs and spirit medicines don't seem to be the materials you mentioned to me before. Duan Lingtian asked Hua Lao in confusion. This was because he felt Hua Lao's words were instigating him. It was as though he was instigating him to loot all the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden. My strength has recovered a little. If these spirit herbs and spirit medicines are refined by my sun flame, they can be transformed into the purest energy to repair the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Hua Lao said. Chapter 1888. Duan Lingtian had long noticed that the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden were not ordinary. Even then, he did not dare to be tempted by the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden because the owner of the herb garden was suspected to be a powerhouse at the Saint Celestial stage. Although it was impossible for the owner to keep an eye on the herb garden at all times, with Duan Lingtian's current strength, he would not be able to detect when the owner was watching the herb garden. Under such circumstances, He would be playing with fire if he was tempted by the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden. If he was lucky, he would be lucky if he was not caught. If he was caught, he would definitely die. Moreover, he might even implicate Guli and Zhuluchi. You've long known about the benefits of the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Aren't you tempted by it? Hua Lao's voice resonated again. If Hua Lao was indirectly encouraging Duan Lingtian earlier, he was now directly encouraging Duan Lingtian. When Duan Lingtian heard Hua Lao's words, he could not help but smile wryly. Hua Lao, of course, I know about the benefits of the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. In fact, I even dream of repairing the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. However, I really can't touch the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden. When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, his tone was filled with helplessness. Why? Hua Lao asked. Duan Lingtian could only reveal his concern. Although I haven't seen the owner of the herb garden with my own eyes, I can tell he's at the Saint Celestial stage and above based on the technique he displayed earlier. With his strength, we won't be able to detect him if he wants to spy on this place. Although it's impossible for him to keep an eye on this place all the time, who knows when he's not watching? If I lose the bet, not only will I die, but I'll also implicate Senior Brother Guli and Palace Master Zhu. Moreover, even if he doesn't catch me stealing the spirit herbs and spirit medicines, won't he suspect me, Senior Brother Guli and Palace Master Zhu? When Duan Lingtian reached the end of his sentence, he shook his head. The problem you mentioned isn't difficult to solve. The moment Duan Lingtian's words left his mouth, Elder Hua continued to speak. You can do this. Then, Hua Lao told Duan Lingtian's idea. After Duan Lingtian's plan, Duan Lingtian, Hua Lao, isn't this a risk? Duan Lingtian, Duan Lingtian, and Duan Lingtian, Duan, and and Duan to escape to kill Duan. With me around, this plan will be foolproof. Hua Lao said confidently. After waiting for a long time, Hua Lao knew Duan Lingtian was still hesitating. Think about it carefully. This is a rare opportunity. If you miss this opportunity, it'll be impossible for you to find another opportunity to repair the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda in such a short time. Moreover, if this plan succeeds, not only will you obtain all the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden, but you and your companions will also be able to escape successfully. Don't tell me you really plan to stay here with your companions until the 10 years are up? You can wait, but can your wife and daughter wait as well? When Hua Lao reached the end of his sentence, his tone was filled with temptation, further influencing Duan Lingtian's mind. Duan Lingtian had mentioned Kur to Hua Lao before, so Hua Lao knew about it. Hua Lao, I believe in you. Duan Lingtian, who was still hesitating, felt his head turn hot when he heard Hua Lao's words. He clenched his teeth and decided to use Hua Lao's method to obtain all the spirit herbs and spirit medicines in the herb garden. Moreover, he would seize this opportunity to escape from the clutches of the person who seemed to be at the Saint Celestial stage. Intermediate riches and honor danger stage. Coupled with Hua Lao's cooperation, Duan Lingtian felt the chances of success were very high. However, he did not really believe Hua Lao's words about it being foolproof. After all, nobody knew what would happen next. If a mistake was made at the most critical moment, they would lose everything. However, Hua Lao, I believe in you, but it doesn't mean that Senior Brother Guli and Palace Master Zhu will believe in me. After all, this concerns our lives, and we can't afford to be careless. Duan Lingtian said again. As long as you're confident, I believe they won't reject you, Hua Lao said. It was obvious he was very confident in Duan Lingtian. I can't guarantee it, but I'll try my best. Hua Lao was confident in Duan Lingtian, but it did not mean he was confident in himself. For this reason, he did not give Hua Lao a definite answer. However, to Duan Lingtian's surprise, when he confidently told Guli and Zhuluchi about Hua Lao's plan, both of them agreed. As long as you know when he's not watching us, this plan is feasible, Zhuluchi said. I think it's feasible as well, Guli chimed in. There's no such thing as a foolproof plan. Even if there's no problem in the beginning, who can guarantee that there won't be any mistakes in the end? Both of you have to think about this carefully. Duan Lingtian said, I've thought about it very clearly. Instead of being imprisoned here for 10 years, why don't we give it our all? Moreover, as long as you know when he's not watching us, the chances of this plan succeeding are very high. Zhu Luqi said again, You're right. Even if it's risky, I, Guli, will give it my all. Guli agreed with Zhu Luqi's words. Since both of you have agreed, then, how about we carry out the plan tomorrow? Seeing that Zhu Luqi and Guli had agreed to it after his reminder, Duan Lingtian did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. Sure. Guli and Zhu Luqi nodded in agreement. They had no objections. In addition, in the depths of their eyes, there was a hint of excitement. They were looking forward to the plan tomorrow. That night, Duan Lingtian and Hua Lao discussed the details and finalized every step of the plan. There can't be any mistakes in tomorrow's plan. Late at night, Duan Lingtian stopped discussing with Hua Lao. However, in his heart, he had secretly made up his mind that he would do his best tomorrow to avoid any mistakes in the entire plan. The sky was turning white, and the next day had arrived. He's retracted his divine sense. The plan begins. Duan Lingtian, who was taking care of the spirit herbs and spirit medicine, suddenly heard an old voice. He could tell that it was Hua Lao's voice. Let's go. Upon hearing Hua Lao's words, Duan Lingtian immediately transmitted his voice to Guli and Zhu Luqi. The two of them, who were already prepared, began to move. After a while, Duan Lingtian and the other two people began to move. In a flash, they disappeared from where they were. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, a gust of strong wind seemed to blow in every corner of the herb garden. Duan Lingtian and the other two people began to move rapidly in the herb garden. Wherever the three of them passed, regardless of whether it was the spirit herbs or spirit medicine, they were all uprooted. Every once in a while, Guli and Zhu Luqi would hand over all the spoils of war in their hands to Duan Lingtian. This was also mentioned by Duan Lingtian. This was because Duan Lingtian had a way to hide the spirit herbs and spirit medicine in a place that was not a spatial ring. It was the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Of course, in front of Guli and Zhu Luqi, he did not mention the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, nor did he mention that he could hide the spirit herbs and spirit medicine without being discovered. Instead, he said that he had a way to destroy all the spirit herbs and spirit medicine in the herb garden without the owner of the herb garden noticing. This was also the first step of the plan. Without this first step, the rest of the plan could not be carried out. With Duan Lingtian and the other two people's strength, it only took them 15 minutes to pluck all the spirit herbs and spirit medicine in the huge herb garden, leaving only a mess on the ground. Senior, this is bad. The spirit herbs and spirit medicine have been taken away. After Duan Lingtian and the other two people looked at each other, Guli took the lead and shouted loudly to remind the owner of the herb garden. His tone was filled with anxiety, and he acted like he was in a hurry. Guli's voice was loud to begin with, coupled with the fact that his shout was filled with the energy of a divine saint stage powerhouse. It immediately alerted the owner of the herb garden. It was also at this moment that Duan Lingtian and the other two people saw the owner of the herb garden for the first time. The owner of the herb garden was an old man with an ordinary appearance. From afar, he had a sage-like air about him. However, at this moment, when the old man looked at the mess in the herb garden, his eyes turned completely red. His face began to twitch as well. It was obvious that he was extremely furious. Senior, that person has gone to the south. Senior, we might still be able to make it if we chase after him now. Duan Lingtian, Guli, and Zhu Luqi looked at the old man anxiously and urged him anxiously. At this moment, they looked a little dejected as though they had just been ambushed. After taking a deep breath, the old man's gaze finally landed on Duan Lingtian and the other two people. Remove the ownership of your spatial rings and hand them over. Under the urging of Duan Lingtian and the other two people, the old man did not chase after them directly. Instead, he immediately looked at Duan Lingtian and the other two people and asked them to hand over their spatial rings. However, he spoke very quickly. It was obvious that he was in a hurry to get his hands on Duan Lingtian and the other two people's spatial rings. Why was he in a hurry to get his hands on Duan Lingtian and the other two people's spatial rings? Naturally, he wanted to confirm that the disappearance of the spirit herbs and spirit medicine had nothing to do with Duan Lingtian and the other two people. Then, he would head south to chase after the person who had stolen his spirit herbs and spirit medicine. When they heard the old man's words, Duan Lingtian and the other two people frowned. However, under the old man's cold and sharp gaze, they obediently removed the ownership of their spatial rings and handed them over to the old man. After receiving the spatial rings, the old man extended his powerful divine sense and searched Duan Lingtian and the other two people's bodies. After confirming that there were no more spatial rings on them, he dripped a drop of blood on their spatial rings and inspected them. After discovering that there were no spirit herbs or spirit medicine from the herb garden in the three people's spatial rings, his face completely darkened. At the same time, he removed the ownership of the three spatial rings and returned them to Duan Lingtian and the other two people. Then, he immediately flew to the south. In the blink of an eye, the old man disappeared in front of Duan Lingtian and the other two people. Chapter 1889. He's spying on all of you. Hua Lao's voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears when the old man was spying on Duan Lingtian and his two companions. Duan Lingtian immediately transmitted his voice to Gu Li and Zhu Luqi. You can start acting now. Acting. Upon hearing Duan Lingtian's voice transmission, whether it was Gu Li or Zhu Luqi, both of them were shocked. The powerhouse who snatched the spirit grasses and spirit medicines away earlier was ridiculously fast. From the beginning until the end, I didn't even have time to react before he snatched all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines away. Duan Lingtian looked at Gu Li and Zhu Luqi in shock and disbelief. It was as though what he had said was true. It's a good thing we didn't go up to stop him after he forced us to retreat. Based on his gaze, I'm afraid we would have been killed if we had gone up to stop him. Gu Li had a fearful expression on his face. He's really strong. I wonder if the owner of this herb garden is a match for him. If we can't catch up to him, I'm afraid we'll have lost all the spirit grasses and spirit medicines for nothing. Zhu Luqi chimed in. Duan Lingtian and his two companions chatted as though there was no one else around. Their words seemed to be very serious, causing the old man who was hiding in the dark to feel at ease. In the next moment, the old man flew out and headed south. Whoosh! The old man's figure flashed out and drew a long heavenly road in the sky. His speed was so fast that it was terrifying. How many years has it been? How many years has it been since someone dared to provoke me? Sunning. No matter who it is, you'll definitely die if you dare to touch my things. The old man's eyes gleamed coldly as his voice was bone-chilling. Sunning. If a native of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land was here, he would definitely be shocked when he heard the old man mentioning his name. The Medicine King, Sun Ying, was a powerful seckless cultivator who was famous in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. Not only was he a quasi-celestial grade saint refinement master who was skilled in the Dao of pills, but he was also a seckless cultivator who was ranked in the top 300 on the Supreme Saint ranking. However, Sun Ying did not expect that he would be fooled by the three fellows from the lower province. The reason why he didn't realize that he had been tricked was because he would never have dreamed that Duan Lingtian and the other two could actually monitor his divine sense and know that he was hiding in the dark at the first moment. Sun Ying was very confident in his own strength. Sun Ying did not expect Duan Lingtian to have someone like Hua Lao by his side to help him. If he had known about Hua Lao's existence, he would have asked Duan Lingtian and the other two to swear on the lightning penalty oath instead of personally verifying that the three Duan Lingtian and the other two did not steal from him. When one's strength had reached Sun Ying's level, it was normal for one to personally do things. Unless there was really no other way, the first thing that came to their mind would not be the lightning penalty oath. Otherwise, Duan Lingtian and the other two would have been in deep trouble this time. As soon as Sun Ying left, Duan Lingtian, who had been reminded by Hua Lao, immediately called out to Gu Li and Zhu Luqi. He's heading south. He won't be back for a while. Let's head west first. Let's move as fast as we can. We'll travel for a month before we think about anything else. All right. At this moment, whether it was Gu Li or Zhu Luqi, Duan Lingtian was their leader. After the three of them rose into the air, they headed west without looking back. They did not dare to stop for even a moment. Fortunately, that old guy only checked our spatial rings and hid in the dark to spy on us. If he had directly asked us to swear on the lightning penalty oath, we would have been in deep trouble. On the way, Guli felt a little relieved. Indeed, Zhu Luqi agreed. After what Guli had said, he was also scared out of his wits. However, I'm afraid he would never have dreamed that we would be able to rob his herb garden when he was not monitoring it. Also, he would never have thought that junior brother Ling Tian would be able to discover him hiding in the dark to spy on us. He would never have thought that we would put on a show for him to see. As Guli spoke, he looked at Duan Lingtian with admiration in his eyes. Yes, Zhu Luqi also nodded. Until now, he still could not figure out how Duan Lingtian had grasped the opportunity when the owner of the herb garden was monitoring the herb garden. He did not think that Duan Lingtian would be able to detect the consciousness of the owner of the herb garden. One had to know that even if he had a higher cultivation base than Duan Lingtian and a stronger consciousness than Duan Lingtian, he still could not detect the consciousness of the owner of the herb garden. However, Duan Lingtian did not, so he and Guli tactfully did not ask any more questions. After all, everyone had their own secrets. Listening to the conversation between Guli and Zhu Luqi, although Duan Lingtian did not interrupt, the conversation between the two still scared him out of his wits because this was also the problem he was worried about before. Hualao, why were you so sure that he would not ask us to swear on the lightning penalty oath? Duan Lingtian could not help but ask Hualao. Previously, he had also told Hualao that he was worried that the owner of the herb garden would ask them to swear on the lightning penalty oath, but Hualao was very sure that the owner would never ask them to swear on the lightning penalty oath and let him go ahead with the plan. Although he was still a little nervous, Duan Lingtian still decided to fight. Now, he had won and successfully escaped from the herb garden and the control of the owner of the herb garden. Just now, because he was too happy, he had forgotten about this matter for a while. But now, after being reminded by Guli and Zhu Luqi, he remembered this matter again, so he could not help but ask Hualao. Because of inertial thinking, Hualao said, inertial thinking? Duan Lingtian was puzzled. To be precise, it is the inertial thinking of the strong. In the eyes of the owner of the herb garden, the three of you are just like ants. If he wants to know something from you, he has his own methods. There's no need to rely on the lightning penalty oath at all. Hualao explained and asked again, think about it. If you were in his shoes and faced the same situation, would you ask 3 ants to swear on the lightning penalty oath? When Duan Lingtian heard this, he fell silent for a moment. In the next moment, he imagined himself in the shoes of the medicine garden's master. Facing the same situation, facing 3 ant-like existences, he would only subconsciously use his own methods to obtain the truth of the matter and not rely on the lightning penalty oath. He didn't expect me to have your help, Hualao. Otherwise, he would definitely regret his actions. After regaining his senses, Duan Lingtian also understood what the so-called inertial thinking of the strong was all about. It was a kind of arrogance, and almost blind belief in oneself. Apart from that, ordinary people would not expect you to have the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda to hide stolen goods. Hualao smiled. No matter what, it's all thanks to you that we were able to escape this time. Hualao, thank you, Hualao. Duan Lingtian sincerely thanked Hualao. Although he was now the owner of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda and Hualao was the pagoda spirit of the 7 treasures exquisite pagoda, it could be said that he was also Hualao's master. However, he had never treated Hualao as a servant. From the beginning to the end, he had always treated Hualao as an elder. As it turned out, he was right to do so. At the very least, all this time, Hualao had been helping him without holding back and did not hold back at all. While Duan Lingtian and the other 2 traveled west for more than 10 days, Sunning, who was traveling south, still did not manage to catch up to the person who robbed his herb garden. He did not even manage to find a trace of the person who robbed his herb garden. Don't tell me that person's strength is not inferior to mine? Sun Ying's expression was grave as he hovered in the air and looked down at the empty land beneath his feet. However, he felt that it was impossible when he thought about it. In the entire upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, there were only about 200 people whose strength was not inferior to his. They were all famous powerhouses on the Supreme Saint ranking. These powerhouses would not stoop so low as to do such a sneaky thing. Moreover, in the eyes of these powerhouses, although the spirit grasses and spirit medicines he planted were not bad, they were not worth the risk of offending him. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, in terms of strength, he was only ranked in the top 300. However, in terms of alchemy Dao, as a quasi-celestial grade Saint Refinement Master, he could be ranked in the top 3 among all the alchemy Dao Saint Refinement Masters in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. It was not worth offending him for the sake of spirit grasses and spirit medicines. Don't tell me that fellow did it? Sun Ying's eyes gleamed coldly as he thought of one of his rivals. Among all his rivals, it seemed like only that person was stronger than him. However, Sun Ying quickly dismissed this possibility. That's not right. There are less than 5 people in the upper province who know the location of my herb garden. It's impossible for that fellow to know the location of my herb garden. There's only one possibility left. There's something wrong with those 3 ants from the lower province. The moment Sun Ying thought of this, he immediately turned around. When he returned to his herb garden, he discovered that the 3 people from the lower province whom he regarded as ants had already left. Even after he searched the north, west, and east for a while, he still could not find any trace of the 3 people. At this moment, he was certain the 3 people from the lower province had already left. Moreover, they had left a long time ago. They actually fled? Don't tell me they really did it? Sun Ying's eyes gleamed coldly as though he was about to devour someone. However, until now, Sun Ying only suspected Duan Lingtian and the other 2. He was not sure if the 3 Duan Lingtian and the other 2 had robbed the spirit grasses and spirit medicines in his herb garden. First of all, he did not think the 3 Duan Lingtian and the other 2 would dare to do that under his watch. After all, he did not think the 3 Duan Lingtian and the other 2 would know when he was not monitoring the herb garden. Secondly, he did not think the conversation between the 3 Duan Lingtian and the other 2 was an act. He did not think the 3 Duan Lingtian and the other 2 would be able to discover him when he was hiding in the dark. However, even if they didn't do it, they still dared to leave without saying a word. How dare they ignore my words and leave on their own? If we meet them again in the future, they will definitely die. Chapter 1890. Who is it? Who dares to rob my Sun Ying's herb garden? Damn it! Damn it! After thinking for a long time, Sun Ying still could not figure out who had robbed his herb garden. He was furious and aggrieved. In the end, he flew into a rage. Swoosh! This feeling was no different from being slapped in the face in a crowd. However, he could not identify the person who slapped him. As the saying went, a dumb man can only suffer in silence. This saying was exactly what Sun Ying was feeling at this moment. The Medicine King, Sun Ying, had suffered in silence. If news of this spread out, who knew what kind of commotion it would cause in the upper province? Meanwhile, Duan Lingtian and the other 2 who had escaped from the herb garden were unaware that the old man who had imprisoned them in the herb garden was a famous figure in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. If it was not for the fact that Sun Ying was unwilling to be restrained, he would have a high position in any of the 3 great sections. Perhaps, his strength might not have much of an advantage in the 3 great sects, but his achievement in the Tao of alchemy was not something that anyone could compare to. Duan Lingtian, Gu Li, and Zhu Luqi traveled west for a month before they finally came to a halt. During this 1 month, they had encountered many assassinations. There were many powerhouses in the Dao Martial Saint Land, and there was no lack of desperados. In order to amass their wealth, these desperados would wait for their prey outside. They would kill passers-by and rob them of their wealth. However, the desperados Duan Lingtian and the other 2 encountered were mostly ordinary, so they could easily deal with them. There was only one time when they encountered 2 troublesome people. They were both intermediate exemplary Saint Stage martial cultivators. One of them was an intermediate exemplary Saint Stage martial cultivator who had half a foot in the mastery exemplary Saint Stage. His strength was on par with Zhu Luqi, and he was evenly matched with Zhu Luqi. When Zhu Luqi realized he could not divert his attention to deal with the other intermediate exemplary, Saint Stage Martial Cultivator, horror dawned on him. When he saw Duan Lingtian transforming into the legendary Dragon Warrior and killing the intermediate exemplary Saint Stage Martial Cultivator in just a few moves, Zhu Luqi's expression changed again. It was precisely because Duan Lingtian had killed the intermediate exemplary Saint Stage Martial Cultivator that it affected the other person's mood. In the end, the other person had also died in the hands of Zhu Luqi, who was on par with him. It could be said that he had died an unjust death. If it was a one-on-one battle, his strength would not be below Zhu Luqi's. Even if the battle continued, it would usually end in a draw in the end. However, because his companions were killed and he was distracted, he died in the hands of Zhu Luqi. He died unjustly and unjustly. Duan Lingtian is so strong? It was also at that time that Zhu Luqi realized he was not the strongest person among them. As it turned out, he was not the strongest among the three of them. The strongest person should be Duan Lingtian, a martial cultivator at the peak of the Divine Saint stage whose cultivation base was 2 stages lower than his. He did not know Duan Lingtian's true cultivation base was not at the peak of the Divine Saint stage, but at the peak of the Eminent Saint stage. With my current strength, coupled with my ability to transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior, even an intermediate exemplary Saint stage martial cultivator won't be able to withstand more than a few moves from me if I use all my techniques. My strength is even stronger than most mastery exemplary Saint stage powerhouses. It's almost on par with a powerhouse at the peak of the exemplary Saint stage. It was precisely because of that battle that Duan Lingtian had a deep understanding of his current strength. In an ancient city near the west of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions found an inn to stay for the time being. Then, they looked for a restaurant to drink and have a meal. Naturally, drinking and eating were only secondary. When one's strength reached Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions' level, it would not affect them even if they did not eat or drink. The reason they came here was because they wanted to know where they were. They did not dare to rest even after a month of running. Due to this reason, they did not know where they were. Hey, have you heard? The Devil Seal tablet has appeared again. At another table near Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions' table, 4 burly middle-aged men were chatting when one of them suddenly brought up this topic. Devil Seal tablet? Didn't the Devil Seal tablet appear more than 5 years ago? I remember it appeared in the lower province. Many people from the upper province went to the lower province just for the Devil Seal tablet, but they came up empty-handed in the end. Another person chimed in, I've heard about this as well. It's said that the young man who obtained the Devil Seal tablet seems to have disappeared completely. Another person said, Your information is too outdated. Your information is too outdated. Not long ago, the young man who obtained the Devil Seal tombstone appeared in the lower province. It's said that he's the young mansion master of the quasi-third-rate force in the lower province, the Azure Cloud Mansion. The last person said, Azure Cloud Mansion? I've heard of it before. It's a first-rate force in the lower province. The mansion master, Duan Rufeng, is also a rare talent. However, I can't believe the young man who obtained the Devil Seal tablet is the young mansion master of the Azure Cloud Mansion. Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian was slightly surprised. He did not expect there would be people in the upper province who knew about his father. The Azure Cloud Mansion is a first-rate force in the lower province, but it's nothing in the upper province. Since the identity of the young man who obtained the Devil Seal tablet has been exposed, I'm sure he won't be able to keep the Devil Seal tablet anymore. You're right. In the end, the Devil Seal tablet was snatched away by Elder Xiezong from the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Xiezong? He's really fast. In this case, does this mean the Devil Seal tablet belongs to the Zhuangzi Buddhism now? The few middle-aged men were talking about Duan Lingtian and the Devil Seal tablet. When their conversation entered Duan Lingtian's ears, Duan Lingtian recalled some of the things that happened in the Azure Cloud Mansion. The bloodthirsty and arrogant attitude of Elder Xiezong from the Zhuangzi Buddhism was still vivid in his mind. For a moment, Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave. Upon seeing this, Gu Li and Zhu Luqi looked at each other. In the end, both of them had a tacit understanding and remained silent. They knew it would be pointless to say anything at this moment. Perhaps, It would be better if they did not say anything. Perhaps, Duan Lingtian would be able to recover faster. As the topic of discussion spread out from the other tables, Duan Lingtian's expression gradually eased up. I heard the saint girl who went missing after being chosen by the saint sect has been found? A slightly hushed voice clearly entered Duan Lingtian's ears and attracted Duan Lingtian's attention. This was because he knew the saint sect this person was talking about was Zoroastrianism. In this place, Zoroastrianism was known as the saint sect because this was the border of the western region. The western region was the territory of Zoroastrianism. In the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, Zoroastrianism ruled the western region. For this reason, Zoroastrianism was also known as the Western Region Zoroastrianism. However, everyone in the Western region called Zoroastrianism the Saint Sect. When Duan Lingtian found out he was in the territory of Zoroastrianism, he sighed emotionally. It did not cross his mind that he would accidentally come to the Western region, the territory of Zoroastrianism, not long after he arrived in the upper province. The saint girl who went missing from the Saint Sect? Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow as his heart skipped a beat. Is it Kerr? When he was still in the Debussy subterranean, Duan Lingtian had heard from his father that Kerr seemed to be the saint girl chosen by the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. For some reason, she ended up on Cloud Continent. Since then, the sect of Zoroastrianism had sent people to the lower province to look for Kerr. However, it was to no avail. It was only when Kerr's twin sister came to Cloud Continent that she found Kerr and brought Kerr back. Yes, we did find her. However, I heard the saint girl didn't know how to cherish herself after she wandered outside. She even had a daughter with someone else. Now, the Saint Sect's enforcement hall is waiting for Lord Sect Leader to come out of his closed-door cultivation so that he can decide the fate of the saint girl and her child. Didn't know how to cherish herself? That's a little too much. As far as I know, the saint girl was still in her infancy when she wandered outside. In other words, she didn't know she was the saint girl of the saint sect ever since she became sensible. Under such circumstances, isn't it too much to ask her to cherish herself and keep her chastity? Shh. Lower your voice. If the saint sect's enforcement hall finds out that you said this, you'll definitely be in deep trouble. I'm only speaking the truth. A soft voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears at the right time, causing Duan Lingtian's face to darken again. Duan Lingtian had a gloomy expression, and his eyes faintly flickered with dense worry. The Saint Sect will recruit elite disciples once every 3 years in a month. I wonder if the Saint Sect will be able to discover any hidden talents this time. Just as Duan Lingtian was worried about the safety of Kerr and her mother, a voice came from afar. Duan Lingtian was stunned for a moment, but he couldn't help but feel energized. Zoroastrianism, recruiting elite disciples in a month? Once every 3 years? Suddenly, Duan Lingtian's breathing became rapid, and his eyes lit up like a hungry wolf. Senior Guli. Duan Lingtian looked at Guli and wanted to say something. However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Guli. I'll go with you. What are you talking about? Seeing Duan Lingtian and Guli acting like this, Zhu Luqi asked in confusion. However, when he found out from Guli that the saint of Zoroastrianism was Duan Lingtian's wife, and that the saint's daughter was Duan Lingtian's daughter, while he was shocked, he also understood what Duan Lingtian and Guli were talking about. Duan Lingtian wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to join the Zoroastrianism when Zoroastrianism recruited elite disciples in a month's time. Guli also wanted to go with him. Since all of you are going, I'll go with you. Zhu Luqi pondered for a moment before he said to Duan Lingtian and Guli. Initially, he wanted to go to the upper district with Duan Lingtian and Guli because he wanted to have an extra layer of protection. However, after experiencing the disaster in the herb garden, he had completely integrated into this small group and truly regarded himself as a member of this small group. Chapter 1891. The belief of Zoroastrianism was the flame that humans relied on to survive. In the western region of the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land, in the eyes of most people in the western region, Zoroastrianism was their belief. Zoroastrianism recruited elite disciples every 3 years. This had become a tradition in the western region. When Zoroastrianism recruited elite disciples, it was usually the busiest time in the Western region. This was because at that time, martial, Tao, and devil cultivators from all over the Western region who were confident in their strength would flock to the four-symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism in order to become a disciple of Zoroastrianism. In their opinion, becoming a disciple of Zoroastrianism was an unparalleled honor. Naturally, the fire worship sect did not accept just anyone when they recruited elite disciples. Only those who passed the tests set by Zoroastrianism would be able to enter Zoroastrianism and become a disciple of Zoroastrianism. The test for becoming a disciple of Zoroastrianism was very cruel as well. Many people died in the test every 3 years. Even so, there were still many people who went in wave after wave as though they were not afraid of death at all. They know there's a tiger in the mountain, but they still insist on going there. The people in the Western region are crazy. In the sky outside the mountain range, Ghoulie could not help but click his tongue as he watched the figures flying past him and entering the mountain range. Don't tell me you haven't noticed the atmosphere in the Western region during this 1 month? More than 70% of the people in the Western region regard Zoroastrianism as their religion. If you dare to speak ill of Zoroastrianism in front of these people, they'll fight you to the death. Zhu Luqi shook his head. He was already used to this after a month. Humph. Recruiting elite disciples? That sounds nice. In fact, it's just recruiting some outer disciples for the four-symbol sanctums. If you want to enter the saint land of Zoroastrianism and become a true elite disciple, you'll have to fight for it yourself. Ghoulie snorted and said with some dissatisfaction. The Zoroastrianism encampment was divided into 2 major areas. One of these areas was the Holy Land of Zoroastrianism. It stood above the quasi-immortal grade Saint Stone mineral deposit and was shrouded in rich spiritual energy all year round. It was the best place for Zoroastrianism to cultivate. Even in the entire upper province of the Tao Martial Saint Land, it was still a top-notch cultivation place. In Zoroastrianism, not just anyone could enter the Holy Land. In order to enter the sacred land, one must first obtain the pass issued by the four-symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism. Normally, those that were able to obtain a pass were either people with formidable strength, monstrous natural talent, or saint refinement masters, Tao talisman masters, or even saint inscription masters with brilliant abilities. For example, the Medicine King, Sun Ying, who had imprisoned Duan Lingtian and the other 2 previously. If he wanted to join Zoroastrianism, not only would he be able to obtain a pass to enter the Holy Land immediately, but he might even be summoned by the sect leader of Zoroastrianism and be received by him. His strength was nothing in front of the sect leader of Zoroastrianism, who was ranked in the top few on the Supreme Saint ranking. However, his achievement in the Tao of Alchemy was worthy of being treated with respect by the sect leader of Zoroastrianism. In the history of Zoroastrianism, there were many people who did not obtain a pass to enter the Holy Land even after they had become outer disciples of Zoroastrianism's four-symbol sanctums. Based on this, one could see how precious the pass to enter the Holy Land of Zoroastrianism was. The four-symbol sanctums. Have all of you decided which sanctum to go to? Duan Lingtian, who was walking side by side with Ghoulie and Zhu Luqi, asked when they saw the mountain range in front of them was getting closer and closer. When Ghoulie and Zhu Luqi heard this, they looked at each other and shook their heads. Junior brother Lingtian, you decide? Ghoulie said to Duan Lingtian, I'm not familiar with Zoroastrianism, so I don't know which sanctum to choose. Same here. Zhu Luqi chimed in as well. Aren't I the same? Duan Lingtian smiled wryly when he saw the 2 of them kicking the ball in his court. However, Duan Lingtian still made up his mind when he saw Ghoulie and the other man's expectant eyes and secretly scolded them for being lazy. Then, I'll just randomly pick one. How about we go to the Azure Dragon Sanctum? The Azure Dragon Sanctum, one of the four-symbol sanctums at the periphery of Zoroastrianism. Apart from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, there was also the Vermilion Bird Sanctum, the White Tiger Sanctum, and the Black Turtle Sanctum. Sure, I have no objections. When Ghoulie and Zhu Luqi heard Duan Lingtian's decision, they nodded in agreement. To them, it did not matter which sanctum they joined. After all, they were all disciples of Zoroastrianism. In that case, it's decided then. We'll go to the Azure Dragon Sanctum. Duan Lingtian nodded. He had chosen the Azure Dragon Sanctum because he had a special relationship with dragons. Apart from the people from his homeland in his previous life who were called descendants of dragons, the reason he had transformed into a dragon warrior was also related to dragons. He had an affinity with dragons. For this reason, he chose the Azure Dragon Sanctum. 3 bumpkins. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, a mocking voice entered Duan Lingtian and the other two's ears. It was obvious the voice was directed at them. What did you say? Gu Li's expression changed immediately. He turned to look at the source of the voice and shouted angrily. Zhu Luqi looked over as well. Duan Lingtian frowned and looked over as well. With just a glance, he saw a young man looking at them arrogantly. His gaze was condescending, as though he was a superior looking down on a subordinate. The young man was skinny, and his appearance was ordinary. However, there was an air of condescension between his brows. Coupled with his luxurious robes, he looked like a good-for-nothing rich kid. An old man stood behind him. The old man stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. From afar, he looked like an ordinary person. However, Duan Lingtian knew the old man was not an ordinary person. In fact, he must be quite strong. Otherwise, he would have been able to see through him. What did you say? The young man in luxurious robes looked at Gu Li and sneered. Is there something wrong with your ears? Can't you hear me, bumpkin? I really don't know why bumpkins like all of you are here. If all of you enter Zoroastrianism, won't all of you embarrass the Zoroastrianism? If I were all of you, I'd definitely turn around and scram as far as I can instead of staying here to embarrass myself. When the young man in luxurious robes reached the end of his sentence, the mocking smile on his face deepened. His eyes were filled with disdain. Duan Lingtian's expression turned grave immediately. Zhu Luqi's expression changed slightly. You're seeking death. As for Gu Li, his expression changed for a while. In the end, he could no longer hold back and made his move at lightning speed. Whoosh! His strength that was close to the intermediate divine, saint stage swept toward the young man in luxurious robes. How dare you make a move in front of me with such little strength? Faced with Gu Li, who was charging at him menacingly, the young man in luxurious robes smiled contemptuously. Then, he moved his arms and made his move as well. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated in the air. Gu Li and the young man in luxurious robes had exchanged blows at lightning speed. The result was revealed soon after. Gu Li was sent flying. On the other hand, the young man in luxurious robes merely trembled slightly before he quickly came to a halt. Barf! Gu Li, who was sent flying, spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked wretched as he staggered. When Gu Li looked at the young man in luxurious robes again, a hint of dread could be seen in his eyes. He did not expect this good-for-nothing rich kid would be so powerful. He was so powerful that he was no match for him. For a moment, he felt a huge blow to his heart. So this is the upper province? I can't even compare to a good-for-nothing rich kid? At the same time, Gu Li's heart was filled with bitterness. He even had doubts. Was his decision to come to the upper province a mistake from the very beginning? You're seeking death. Zhu Luqi's expression changed when he saw Gu Li was injured. Then, he made his move as well. Whoosh! He charged toward the good-for-nothing rich kid. Zhu Luqi was an intermediate exemplary saint stage powerhouse. His cultivation base was close to the mastery exemplary saint stage. Due to this reason, the speed he displayed when he charged out was not something Gu Li could compare to. Even the good-for-nothing rich kid who was dressed in luxurious robes only had time to react when he saw Zhu Luqi's speed. He did not even have time to dodge. Exemplary saint stage powerhouse. At this moment, the good-for-nothing rich kid only had one thought in his mind. However, although there was a drastic change in his expression, there was not the slightest trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. It was as though he had something to rely on. Duan Lingtian had also noticed this. Does his confidence come from the old man behind him? Hermph! Just as Zhu Luqi's attack was about to land on the good-for-nothing rich kid, a cold snort that contained an invisible sound wave resonated in the air. Although Zhu Luqi was still a distance away from the sound wave, he could still feel the immense pressure. His expression changed drastically. Be careful. At this critical moment, Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically. He noticed the old man who had been quietly following behind the good-for-nothing rich kid suddenly moved his body slightly. He instantly warned Zhu Luqi out of reflex. However, although he warned Duan Lingtian in time, it was still too late. Bang! The old man did not seem to have made any moves, but Zhu Luqi's attack that was supposed to land on the good-for-nothing rich kid was completely destroyed. Moreover, a crisp sound rang in the air as Zhu Luqi's body was sent flying like an arrow that was shot out from a bow. He spat out a mouthful of blood and followed in Guli's footsteps. Quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse. Zhu Luqi, who was sent flying pathetically, could not help but cry out in shock. Horror dawned on his face when he saw this. Even a powerhouse at the peak of the exemplary Saint Stage would not be able to injure him to such an extent before he could even react. There was only one possibility. The person who attacked him was a quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse. A quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse. Guli's expression changed drastically. Duan Lingtian's expression changed again and again as well. What's wrong? Are you afraid? When the good-for-nothing rich kid saw the change in Duan Lingtian and the other two's expressions, the gloomy expression on his face disappeared. His eyes gleamed coldly as he ordered the old man behind him. Chapter 1892. Old Deng, kill them. Upon hearing the good-for-nothing rich kid's words, Duan Lingtian and the other two were horrified. They did not expect this good-for-nothing rich kid to be so crazy. It was just a small conflict, and he did not suffer any losses, but he wanted to kill them. Duan Lingtian looked at the good-for-nothing rich kid as his eyes flashed fiercely. At this moment, the sun's true origin in his body began to stir. He was ready to activate his dragon energy and transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior. Moreover, he had already decided to use the Jasper Celestial Sword. Naturally, even if he used the Jasper Celestial Sword, he was not confident he could defeat the old man who was at the quintessential Saint Stage. After all, the Jasper Celestial Sword only relied on the sun's true origin in his body. Other techniques such as transforming into a dragon warrior did not have any effect on the Jasper Celestial Sword. At most, he could only rely on his divine ability, the elementary devouring tactic. With the elementary devouring tactic, my sun's true origin should be able to elevate to the mastery exemplary Saint Stage's true origin in a short period of time. If this old man is only at the early quintessential Saint Stage, I'm confident I can kill him with the Jasper Celestial Sword. However, if he's at the intermediate quintessential Saint Stage, I'm less than 30% confident. If he's at the mastery quintessential Saint Stage or above, I won't be able to kill him. At this moment, many thoughts flashed through Duan Lingtian's mind. However, no matter what the outcome is, this fella must die. Duan Lingtian once again looked at the profligate young master in embroidered clothes, and the killing intent in his eyes was awe-inspiring. Even if the old man wanted to kill them, regardless of whether he could kill the old man with the Jasper Celestial Sword, he would drag this good-for-nothing rich kid down with him. At this moment, the ruthlessness in Duan Lingtian's heart began to show. Second young master, we're outside of the four symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism. The old man frowned slightly when he heard the good-for-nothing rich kid's order. In the end, he did not make a move. Instead, he sent a voice transmission to remind him. As a quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse, his eyesight was shocking. He could already see the patrolling disciples from the four symbol sanctums in the distance had noticed the commotion here and were making their way over. Zoroastrianism, four symbol sanctums. Upon hearing the old man's words, a hint of dread could be seen in the good-for-nothing rich kid's eyes. He looked at Duan Lingtian's group of three and mocked, "3 country bumpkins, consider yourselves lucky. If this was not the territory of the four symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism, all of you would have died today. Also, I advise you to give up on Zoroastrianism. Otherwise, I, Yang Wu, will play you to death." After leaving these words behind, the good-for-nothing rich kid who called himself Yang Wu brought the old man over the mountain range in front of them and entered the base of the four symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism. At the same time, apart from Duan Lingtian, Gu Li and Zhu Luqi were relieved. Their faces showed the joy of surviving a disaster. However, Gu Li's expression soon turned gloomy. He looked at Duan Lingtian and said with a wry smile, "Junior brother Lingtian, do you think I should just stay in the lower district?" Huh. Duan Lingtian shifted his gaze from Yang Wu and Zhu Luqi to Gu Li. Why? Originally, I thought my innate talent and strength were not bad. Who knew I would be imprisoned after coming to the upper district? I can't even compare to a good-for-nothing rich kid. Should I just stay in the lower district and fight to become the mansion master of Mystical Sky Mansion? Gu Li had a bitter smile on his face. He felt the upper district was filled with malice toward him. Senior brother Gu Li, that Yang Wu must have an extraordinary background since he dares to be so arrogant in the Zoroastrianism four-symbol sanctums. There's no need for you to compare yourself to him now. After all, the cultivation resources you had in the past were far from what he had. He's not much stronger than you. Duan Lingtian shook his head and comforted him. Little brother, you're right. Yang Wu is the second son of the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect, a first-rate sect in the north of the western region. He grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. Ordinary people can't compare to him at all. At the same time, one of the few people standing in the distance reminded them out of goodwill. If I were you, I'd do as Yang Wu said and give up on joining Zoroastrianism. After joining Zoroastrianism, not only is there a powerhouse following him, but he also has an elder brother who's also a Zoroastrianism disciple. It's said that his elder brother has already entered the Saint Land and become a true elite disciple of Zoroastrianism. His elder brother's strength should be much stronger than the powerhouse following him. Soon after, another person reminded Duan Lingtian and the other two. Also, when you arrive at the four-symbol sanctums, you won't be able to choose whichever sanctum you want. Everyone will be reorganized and assigned to whichever sanctum you're assigned to. Perhaps, if you're lucky, you'll be assigned to the same sanctum, or two of you will be assigned to the same sanctum. However, it's also possible that all three of you will be assigned to different sanctums. At this moment, Duan Lingtian and the other two finally understood why Yang Wu called them bumpkins. However, now that things had developed to this stage, it was no longer important. After a while, the few onlookers left. Only Duan Lingtian and the other two were left in this area. In the distant sky, the patrolling disciples of the four-symbol sanctums who saw that Duan Lingtian and the others were no longer making any movements also left after observing them from afar. As it turns out, he's the son of an elder from a first-rate force in the upper province. To think that I actually doubted myself because of him. Now that I think about it, how laughable. Gu Li smiled self-deprecatingly, but his eyes shone with confidence. As long as he joined Zoroastrianism, he was confident he would be able to defeat Yang Wu in the near future and trample him under his feet. After all, Yang Wu grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He was not much stronger than him. Junior brother Lingtian, Palace Master Zhu, let's go. Let's go to the four-symbol sanctums. Gu Li called out to Duan Lingtian and Zhu Luqi before he took the lead and leaped over the mountain range in front of them. It was as though he was on steroids. At this moment, he only wanted to join Zoroastrianism as soon as possible and use the resources of Zoroastrianism to raise his strength quickly. Only then would he have a chance to catch up to Yang Wu and surpass him. Currently, surpassing Yang Wu and trampling him under his feet had become his #1 goal. Duan Lingtian could completely understand Gu Li's feelings. However, before he followed Gu Li, he looked at Zhu Luqi and said, "Palace Master Zhu, this Zoroastrianism trip is more dangerous than we thought. Otherwise what? You young people aren't afraid of trouble. Do you think an old man like me is afraid of trouble?" Zhu Luqi interrupted Duan Lingtian. Naturally, he knew what Duan Lingtian wanted to say. Duan Lingtian wanted to remind him of the dangers of Zoroastrianism and persuade him to leave. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Luqi flew after Gu Li without waiting for Duan Lingtian's reply. Duan Lingtian smiled wryly. He knew he had wasted his breath, so he immediately followed after them. This is the Black Turtle Sanctum of the four-symbol sanctums? After crossing the mountain range, the first thing that entered Duan Lingtian's eyes was a large group of buildings. When he looked down at the buildings, he could see they were all lit up with flames. On top of that, The flames were clearly arranged in a special way because they formed a huge black tortoise pattern. It was like a black tortoise that was completely condensed out of flames. The four symbol sanctums of Zoroastrianism would recruit a batch of disciples every 3 years. This year, it was the Black Turtle Sanctum's turn to entertain those who came to participate in the assessment. Naturally, it was only a reception. After all the participants of the assessment had gathered in the Black Turtle Sanctum, the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and Vermilion Bird Sanctum would also send people to participate in the assessment with the Black Turtle Sanctum. Then, they would bring the people they selected back to their respective sanctums for assessment. As long as they passed the assessment, they would be able to become a disciple of their respective sanctum. If they failed, they would be eliminated. For this reason, all the people who wanted to become a disciple of Zoroastrianism had come to the Black Turtle Sanctum. So many people. When Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions arrived at the Black Turtle Sanctum, they saw a huge crowd. There were at least a few thousand people there. They were inconspicuous among the thousands of people. Although they were inconspicuous, there were still people who noticed them. It seems like the 3 of you country bumpkins won't give up until all hope is gone. I hope all of you can work hard and pass the assessment of the 4 symbol sanctums. At that time, all of you are barely qualified to become my playthings. At that time, I'll play with all of you until you're dead. Yang Wu brought the old man with him and appeared in front of Duan Lingtian and his 2 companions again. He looked at the 3 of them mockingly. His tone was still condescending and arrogant. When he reached the end of his sentence, killing intent flashed in his eyes. It was as though he was going to devour them. Gu Li's expression darkened immediately. Zhu Luqi's eyes turned cold as well. Idiot! Duan Lingtian glanced at Yang Wu indifferently as he spat out 2 words at a speed that was neither fast nor slow. His words were unbridled. When Gu Li and Zhu Luqi heard Duan Lingtian calling them idiots, they felt elated. However, at the same time, they could not help but worry about Duan Lingtian's safety. The 2 of them immediately moved closer to Duan Lingtian as they looked at the old man behind Yang Wu with fear in their eyes. As expected, the moment Duan Lingtian finished speaking, the old man's expression darkened. His gaze was as sharp as a knife and was extremely sharp. You dare call me an idiot? At the same time, Yang Wu, who was stunned by Duan Lingtian's words, finally regained his senses. He looked at Duan Lingtian as though he had seen a ghost. In his entire life, this was the first time someone had dared to call him an idiot in front of him. You're courting death. Finally, after a moment of shock, Yang Wu was completely enraged. As killing intent flashed in his eyes, he charged toward Duan Lingtian like a gust of wind. The old man behind Yang Wu immediately locked his chi on Gu Li and Zhu Luqi to prevent them from making a move. As for Duan Lingtian, he did not think he would be a match for his young master since he looked so young. Just when Duan Lingtian was about to make a move when he saw Yang Wu's attack, a voice suddenly rang out. How dare you! A thunderous voice overpowered the clamor in the sky above the Black Turtle Sanctum, causing the scene to fall silent. Chapter 1893. Boom. Although the force that exploded between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu was terrifying, it was extremely gentle. At the very least, it was gentle to Duan Lingtian, who had yet to make his move. Due to this reason, Duan Lingtian was only pushed back a few steps. He was not injured at all. On the other hand, since Yang Wu had attacked Duan Lingtian out of anger, a vast energy swept out. When it collided with the energy, he suffered a great backlash and was sent flying far away. Barf! As he was sent flying, Yang Wu's internal organs trembled, and he threw up a mouthful of blood. Blood splattered across the sky like red roses that were almost black in color. Second young master. The old man who was originally following behind Yang Wu no longer cared about Gu Li and Zhu Luqi. He immediately flew out to help Yang Wu stabilize his body. Whoosh! At the same time, under the watchful eyes of the others, a tall and old figure appeared in the distance. It was an old man dressed in a white robe embroidered with a flaming black tortoise. His body was sturdy and tall. As he stood there, he looked like a majestic iron tower. It's a silver flame elder. At the same time, many people gasped and exclaimed softly. The sturdy old man's white robe was embroidered with a flaming black tortoise pattern. The color of the flaming black tortoise was silver. It was extremely eye-catching. This was the symbol of a silver flame elder in Zoroastrianism. In Zoroastrianism, the elders were divided into 3 ranks. They were bronze flame elder, silver flame elder, and golden flame elder. Among them, the golden flame elder had the highest position. He was one of the top high-ranking officials in Zoroastrianism. In the Black Turtle Sanctum, only the sanctum leader of the Black Turtle Sanctum was a golden flame elder. Based on this, one could see how rare a golden flame elder was. This also showed how high a golden flame elder's position was in Zoroastrianism. Below the golden flame elder was the silver flame elder. There were a total of 5 silver flame elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum. All of them were top-tier powerhouses in the Black Turtle Sanctum. All of them were at the Saint Celestial stage. Their names were even in the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking. In Zoroastrianism, one only needed to fulfill 2 conditions to become a silver flame elder. First, they must be loyal to Zoroastrianism. Secondly, he had to be ranked within the top 300 of the Supreme Saint ranking. The most important thing was the latter condition. This showed how powerful the Silver Flame Elder was. Based on this Silver Flame Elder's tall and muscular body, if I'm not mistaken, he must be Elder Teng Shan from the Black Turtle Sanctum. In the crowd, a middle-aged man dressed like a scholar said with a serious expression, "Elder Teng Shan?" Many people could not help but exclaim, "Elder Teng Shan is ranked 173rd on the Supreme Saint ranking. His strength is ranked in the top 3 among the 5 silver flame elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum." I didn't expect Elder Teng Shan to personally come out. It seems like these 2 people are going to be in trouble. Elder Teng Shan's temper is notorious for being hot-tempered. They actually dare to fight in the Black Turtle Sanctum. They're asking for trouble. Amidst the discussions, many people looked at Duan Ling Tian and Yang Wu with pity in their eyes. That person seems familiar. Isn't he the second son of the Northern Plethora sect's 5th elder? Soon after, someone recognized Yang Wu, the second son of the Northern Plethora sect's 5th elder. Many people instantly shifted their attention to Yang Wu. Some of them had seen Yang Wu before and immediately recognized him. As expected, it's him, the second son of the Northern Plethora sect's 5th elder, Yang Wu. It's said that the Northern Plethora sect's 5th elder, Yang Chong, and the Black Turtle Sanctum's 1st Silver Flame elder, Lian, are best friends. Elder Lian is a Silver Flame elder who's even more powerful than Elder Teng Shan. It seems like the person who went against Yang Wu is going to be in trouble today. More and more people looked at Duan Lingtian with pity in their eyes. Naturally, Duan Lingtian also heard the whispers in the surroundings. His heart skipped a beat as a frown appeared on his face. Gu Li and Zhu Luqi's expressions changed drastically. In their opinion, Elder Teng Shan and Elder Lian were both Silver Flame Elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Moreover, Elder Teng Shan was more powerful than Elder Teng Shan, so he would definitely give Elder Lian some face. Moreover, Lian and Yang Wu's father were best friends. Elder Teng Shan would most likely side with Yang Wu. How dare you fight in the Black Turtle Sanctum? Everyone, including Yang Wu, thought Teng Shan, the Silver Flame Elder, would side with Yang Wu. However, Teng Shan glared at Yang Wu and shouted angrily. Accompanying his voice was an awe-inspiring sound wave. With a vast presence, it enveloped Yang Wu's body, causing his injuries to worsen. He spat out another mouthful of blood, his face as pale as a sheet of paper. A hint of fear could be seen in Yang Wu's eyes. Teng Shan did not give Elder Lian any face at all? Or perhaps he did not hear the whispers in the surroundings and did not know Yang Wu's identity? Whoosh! At the same time, the entire place was in an uproar. Nobody present on the scene expected Teng Shan to make a move on Yang Wu. This was beyond their imagination. What's going on? Elder Teng Shan actually made a move to punish Yang Wu? Doesn't he know Yang Wu's identity? Elder Teng Shan must have not heard our conversation and doesn't know Yang Wu's identity. Otherwise, even if he doesn't give Yang Wu's father face, he would still give Elder Lian face. I think so too. The crowd discussed among themselves and reached a consensus. Duan Lingtian, Gu Li, and Zhu Luqi had similar thoughts as well. Elder Teng Shan, this is my sect's second young master, Yang Wu. He's the second son of Yang Chong, the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect. The old man next to Yang Wu had the same thought as the people present on the scene. He thought Teng Shan did not know Yang Wu's identity. Therefore, he reminded Elder Teng Shan, Elder Lian from your sect is a close friend of our fifth elder. I'm sure you've heard of him before, Elder Teng Shan. When the old man reached the end of his sentence, he intentionally added. He was afraid Teng Shan did not know about the relationship between his fifth elder and Elder Lian from the Black Turtle Sanctum. So what? However, to everyone's surprise, Teng Shan's expression remained unchanged when he heard the old man's reminder. He said nonchalantly, everyone has to abide by the Black Turtle Sanctum's rules. Let alone the son of Elder Lian's old friend, even if it's Elder Lian's biological son who commits a crime in the Black Turtle Sanctum, I won't show any mercy. I believe even if Elder Lian is present, he'll agree with me. Teng Shan's selflessness shocked many people. Elder Teng Shan is not bad. Gu Li sighed in relief as he said softly. Zhu Luqi nodded. Duan Lingtian glanced at Teng Shan. The dread in his eyes was no longer there, and it was replaced with admiration. Put everything else aside, Elder Teng Shan's selflessness had already earned his respect. Elder Teng Shan is right. At this moment, another old voice resonated in the air and attracted everyone's attention. Under everyone's watchful eyes, a skinny old man appeared. This old man was wearing the same robe as Teng Shan. It was obvious he was also a silver flame elder. Uncle Lian. Yang Wu's eyes lit up when he saw the person who had just arrived. Everyone present on the scene immediately realized who he was. This silver flame elder was none other than Lian, the silver flame elder from the Black Turtle Sanctum of Zoroastrianism. He was also the most powerful silver flame elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum. From the moment he appeared, Lian's expression was calm. No one could tell if he was happy or angry. Even when he heard Yang Wu's greeting, he merely glanced at Yang Wu indifferently and nodded before ignoring him. Upon seeing this, Yang Wu could not help but frown. In the past, his uncle Lian had never treated him so coldly. Little Wu, don't worry. Uncle Lian will definitely satisfy you. Just as Yang Wu was feeling a little unhappy, a voice rang in his ears. He could tell that it was his Uncle Lian's voice. The gloominess in his heart instantly disappeared and was replaced with excitement. In the end, his Uncle Lian was on his side. Elder Teng Shan, as the saying goes, it takes two to clap. You've already punished Yang Wu. Isn't it time for the other person to be punished as well? Lian asked as he looked at Teng Shan under everyone's watchful eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned to look at Duan Lingtian. Lian's cold gaze that was filled with killing intent entered Duan Lingtian's eyes. It made him feel as though he was being stared at by a poisonous snake. At the same time, Duan Lingtian's expression changed drastically. This Lian actually wants to kill me? At this moment, Duan Lingtian realized how naive he was. To think he thought Lian was as selfless as Teng Shan when he heard Lian's words. However, based on the current situation, it was obvious Lian was not like Teng Shan. Elder Lian, Yang Wu was the only one who made a move. Teng Shan frowned. He did not make a move on Duan Lingtian as Lian had said. Apart from obstructing Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu, the energy he had cast to appear between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu was also used to prove who was the culprit. Whoever exerted their strength would be injured by his power. Earlier, only Yang Wu was injured, and Duan Lingtian was not injured. This meant Yang Wu was the only one who had disregarded the Black Turtle Sanctum's rules. Due to this reason, he did not plan to punish Duan Lingtian. Elder Teng Shan, I've said it before. It takes two to clap. Since you're not going to make a move, leave it to me. Upon hearing Teng Shan's words, Lian's expression turned grave immediately. He raised his hand and struck his palm in the air at Duan Lingtian. Boom! Instantly, the void trembled as a vast and terrifying energy tore through the air and swept toward Duan Lingtian. In the blink of an eye, Duan Lingtian felt as though he was about to suffocate. The energy that surged toward him was extremely terrifying. It had completely locked him in place, causing him to be unable to move at all. No! Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes, and a look of unwillingness appeared on his face. Chapter 1894. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. No matter who it was, they never imagined that Lian would use a killing move as soon as he attacked, intending to kill Duan Lingtian. Elder Lian. Even Tung Shan did not expect Lian to be so ruthless. Horror dawned on him, and he immediately moved to stop Lian. However, his strength was weaker than Lian's to begin with. Moreover, Lian had made the first move. For this reason, although he managed to save Duan Lingtian in time, he only managed to block half of Lian's force. The remaining half of the force still landed on Duan Lingtian's body. Bang! Although the force had been reduced by half, it was still fatal to Duan Lingtian. When the force landed on Duan Lingtian's body, Duan Lingtian instantly felt a heart-wrenching pain. After the pain subsided, he almost fainted. No, I can't faint. I can't faint. Duan Lingtian tried his best to maintain his consciousness until he was almost numb from the heart-wrenching pain all over his body. Only then did he forcefully endure it. After regaining his consciousness, Duan Lingtian knew he had made it. After circulating the Sun True Origin in his body to heal some of his injuries, Duan Lingtian finally caught his breath. At the same time, he looked at Tung Shan and said gratefully, "Thank you for saving my life, Elder Tung Shan. He's not dead." When they saw Duan Lingtian had made it through, both Lian who attacked Duan Lingtian and Tung Shan who saved Duan Lingtian in time were shocked. How's this possible? Lian's face was filled with disbelief. He knew very well the strength of his attack. Even if Tang Shan had blocked half of his force, the remaining half of his force should have been enough to kill a human martial, Dao, or devil cultivator below the Saint Celestial stage who was targeted by his aura. However, the purple-clad young man in front of him was still alive. He found this hard to believe. Both Lian and Tang Shan were in disbelief. Although he had successfully blocked half of Lian's attack, it was still enough to kill any martial, Dao, or devil cultivator below the Saint Celestial stage who had not undergone the celestial tempering. Could it be that he's not human? Lian and Tang Shan immediately extended their divine senses and probed Duan Lingtian from head to toe. They wanted to confirm whether Duan Lingtian was a human or not. This was because it was practically impossible for a human below the Saint Celestial stage to survive after taking that attack head-on. However, the result of the divine sense investigation showed that Duan Lingtian was indeed a human. He is indeed a human, but why is his body so strong? Soon, the results of the investigation were out. Duan Lingtian was a pure human. However, at the same time, they discovered Duan Lingtian's body was insanely strong. It was comparable to the body of an ordinary divine saint stage wild beast and the body of a divine saint stage saint beast. In their eyes, this was a very inconceivable thing. However, the truth was right before their eyes. They had no choice but to believe it. For a time, they could only attribute this to Duan Lingtian's fortuitous encounter in the past. Otherwise, it was impossible for his body to be so strong. If my body was slightly weaker, I would have definitely died from that attack. At this moment, Duan Lingtian finally realized this. Yes, the reason why he was able to survive was mostly due to his strong body. At that moment, not only was his body immobilized, but he could not even circulate the Sun True Origin in his body. Under such circumstances, it was impossible for him to transform into a dragon warrior. Although Duan Lingtian did not die, his injuries were not light. At the very least, his injuries were much more severe than Yang Yang's. Elder Lian's attack earlier was too ruthless. If Elder Ting Shan did not make a move, this young man would have died. That's right. Based on his injuries, we can see how terrifying Elder Lian's attack was. In the end, even when Elder Ting Shan made a move to stop him, the remaining force from the attack almost killed him. Elder Lian is siding with Yang Wu after all. However, it's normal when you think about it. After all, Yang Wu is his best friend's son. The people present on the scene regained their senses one after another, causing a commotion in the sky above the black turtle sanctum. Many people looked at Lian with dread in their eyes. When Lian first appeared, he was magnanimous and gave off a sense of selflessness. However, Lian's subsequent actions made them realize not every silver flame elder in the Black Turtle Sanctum was like Tang Shan. Earlier, I almost died. I have no enmity with Lian, but he wants to kill me just because of a conflict between me and Yangwu? Duan Lingtian raised his head and looked at Lian in the distance. His eyes were burning with rage. Noticing Duan Lingtian's gaze, Lian merely glanced at Duan Lingtian indifferently before he no longer looked at him, let alone pay attention to him. Although Duan Lingtian's body was much stronger than ordinary people, in Lian's eyes, Duan Lingtian was still an ant that he could easily trample on. If Ting Shan did not make a move earlier, Duan Lingtian would have been killed by him. Lian, faced with Lian who ignored him, Duan Lingtian could not help but feel enraged when he recalled how close he was to death earlier. He hated Lian to the core. If he was stronger than Lian, he would kill Lian immediately, even if he had to risk offending the Zoroastrianism and being hunted down by the Zoroastrianism. However, even if he used the Jasper Celestial Sword and attacked with all his might, it was still impossible for him to kill Lian. For this reason, he could only endure it. The reason he endured it today was so that he would have a better chance of taking revenge tomorrow. Junior brother Ling Tian, are you all right? At this moment, Gu Li, who had regained his senses, looked at Duan Lingtian worriedly. He did not expect Lian to be so shameless as to kill Duan Lingtian, who had not officially joined the Zoroastrianism. Zhu Luqi looked at Duan Lingtian as well. Although he did not say anything, his eyes were filled with concern. Elder Lian, even if he's at fault, he doesn't deserve to die, right? Tung Shan asked coldly as he looked at Lian with a gloomy expression on his face. I know he doesn't deserve to die. I merely made a mistake earlier. It was not intentional. Moreover, he's still alive, right? Lian said nonchalantly. His expression did not change when he faced the overbearing Tung Shan. Tung Shan was at a loss for words when he heard Lian's shameless words. The others present on the scene were speechless as well. They did not expect Lian to lie so confidently. Made a mistake? He's still alive? Duan Lingtian's expression darkened again. He did not expect Lian to be so shameless. It was obvious Lian wanted to kill him, but he did not dare to admit it. Since the two of you have already accepted your punishment, then today's matter will come to an end. Lian glanced at Duan Lingtian before he turned to look at Yang Wu, who was frowning when he heard Lian's words. In the next moment, he reminded Yang Wu through voice transmission. Yang Wu's frown disappeared when he heard Lian's reminder. He immediately looked at Duan Lingtian with killing intent in his eyes. Elder Tung Shan, you don't have any objections, right? Lian asked as he looked at Tung Shan. Tung Shan shook his head. How could he have any objections at this point? Furthermore, he had already punished those who needed to be punished. Elder Lian. When Tung Shan shook his head, Yang Wu immediately looked at Lian and said solemnly, Today, I'd like to challenge a person to a death duel. I hope Elder Lian can be the witness of this death duel between me and him. Death duel. The people present on the scene instinctively turned to look at Duan Lingtian when they heard Yang Wu's words. Then, they shifted their attention to Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu. They saw Yang Wu, who had almost recovered from his injuries, and Duan Lingtian, who was severely injured and had a face as pale as a sheet. Yang Wu is really shameless. Many people immediately cursed in a low voice. The cursing was one-sided. At this moment, Yang Wu wanted to initiate a death duel and even asked Lian to be the witness. They did not have to think to be able to guess that Yang Wu's target was surely Duan Lingtian, who was injured to the point of being on the verge of death by Lian. Shameless. He's too shameless. Does Yang Wu want to have an unfair advantage? Don't be hasty. This matter isn't set in stone yet. Even if Yang Wu issues a death duel, he still needs the other party to agree. If he doesn't agree, at least in the Black Turtle Sanctum, whether it's Yang Wu or Lian, no one can touch this young man. The people present on the scene discussed among themselves. None of them felt Duan Lingtian would agree to Yang Wu's death duel. In their opinion, if Duan Lingtian was not at his peak, he would not be a match for Yang Wu. Now that he was severely injured, unless he was seeking death, he would definitely not agree to Yang Wu's death duel. You want me to be the witness? Of course. Lian agreed readily and asked, Who do you want to issue a death duel with? As soon as Lian asked this question, Yang Wu immediately shifted his gaze to Duan Lingtian. Trash. Do you dare to have a death duel with me? Although the people present on the scene had long guessed that Yang Wu would challenge Duan Lingtian to a death duel, when they saw Yang Wu challenging Duan Lingtian to a death duel and calling Duan Lingtian trash in an attempt to infuriate him, they were stunned. They couldn't help but curse, shameless. Yang Wu is too shameless. How can there be such a shameless person in this world? Naturally, there were people who cursed as well. Guli was one of them. Junior brother Ling Tian, just ignore him. An idiot like him only dares to issue a death duel with you when you're injured. Guli reminded Duan Ling Tian. He was afraid Duan Ling Tian would agree to it. Recuperate well. You don't even have to fully recover. You just need to recover a little more. At that time, killing him will be as easy as killing a chicken. Zhu Luqi chimed in as well. In the next moment, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Ling Tian narrowed his eyes and looked at Yang Wu through the slits. He asked in a slightly hoarse voice. Chapter 1895. That's right. Yang Wu nodded proudly. The gaze he used to look at Duan Ling Tian was still condescending, like a superior looking down on a subordinate. Naturally, you can reject it as well. After all, you and your two companions are trash. Yang Wu smiled disdainfully as he looked at Guli and Zhu Luqi. Guli and Zhu Luqi's expressions changed immediately. However, they knew Yang Wu was intentionally provoking Duan Ling Tian. Due to this reason, they did not flare up. They were afraid if they were to flare up, it would only make Duan Ling Tian even angrier. If Duan Ling Tian was not severely injured, naturally, they would not doubt that Duan Ling Tian would be able to kill Yang Wu. However, although Duan Ling Tian was no longer on the verge of death, based on his condition, it was obvious he was still on the verge of death. Even Guli felt he could defeat Duan Ling Tian now. Moreover, Duan Ling Tian was facing Yang Wu, who was even stronger than Guli. Death duel. Duan Ling Tian was not unfamiliar with death duels. Moreover, if he did not carefully recall all the death duels he had experienced, he would not be able to remember them. However, based on the fact that Duan Ling Tian was still standing here, it could be seen that Duan Ling Tian's death was inevitable. Without exception, all of his opponents had died in the death duels. Today, Yang Wu, the son of the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect, a first-rate sect in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saintland, had challenged him to a death duel in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Moreover, the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame elder, Leon, was the witness. As expected, you're trash. If you don't dare to accept the duel, just stand there. Why are you hesitating? Yang Wu continued to look at Duan Ling Tian condescendingly as he said arrogantly, "Do you think your hesitation will change your cowardice? Coward. Trash. Do you think I'll reject a duel when faced with someone who's not even comparable to trash?" Duan Ling Tian finally spoke. Something worse than trash? Hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, the hearts of everyone present trembled. Judging from Duan Ling Tian's words, did he intend to accept Yang Wu's challenge? Crazy. Immediately, many people sucked in a cold breath, thinking that Duan Ling Tian had gone mad. Could it be that his strength is so strong that he can still defeat Yang Wu even with such serious injuries? There were also some who were quite powerful. Out of curiosity, they extended their divine senses to check Duan Ling Tian's cultivation. However, their expressions changed in the next moment. The peak of the eminent saint stage? How is this possible? I also detected that his cultivation base is at the peak of the great sage stage. Oh my God. Is he courting death? A heavily injured powerhouse at the peak of the eminent saint stage actually accepted a death duel challenge from a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator who's in his prime. What's he thinking? Had his head been kicked by a donkey? You're seeking death. When Duan Ling Tian's cultivation base was exposed, the entire place was in an uproar again. Naturally, there were also a few people who remained calm. It was as though they already knew Duan Ling Tian's cultivation base was at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Apart from Guli and Zhu Luqi, there were also Yang Wu, Leon, and Teng Shan among these people. There was no need for Guli and Zhu Luqi since they were Duan Ling Tian's companions. As for Yang Wu, he would listen to Lian. When Lian and Tang Shan used their divine senses to check if Duan Lingtian was human, they had already discovered Duan Lingtian's cultivation base. Due to this reason, Lian had asked Yang Wu to humiliate Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. As long as Duan Lingtian accepted Yang Wu's death duel challenge, today's matter would be considered complete. At least, it would be considered complete for Lian. In this way, he would be able to explain himself to his best friend in the future. Due to Lian's manipulation, the scene before their eyes had unfolded. Junior brother Lingtian, Duan Lingtian, Guli and Zhu Luqi's expressions changed immediately. They looked at Duan Lingtian in a panic. Just as they were about to persuade him, Duan Lingtian blocked them. "Don't worry, I'm confident. Senior brother Guli, it's not like you haven't seen me in a death duel before. Previously, when I was still in the mystical sky mansion, didn't Zhao Kuan from the Zhao clan die in my hands? At that time, how many people thought I'd win?" Duan Lingtian's words were filled with confidence. But now, Guli was just about to say that Duan Lingtian was injured and could not be compared to when he was at his peak when he was interrupted by Duan Lingtian. It's enough to kill Yang Wu. In the end, Guli and Zhu Luqi chose to believe in Duan Lingtian. Naturally, this was their only choice. They could see that Duan Lingtian had already made up his mind. It was a decision that could not be changed. Elder Teng Shan, I hope you can be a witness to the death duel between Yang Wu and me. Otherwise, I'm afraid a certain old dog won't be able to stop himself from interfering when he sees I'm about to kill someone who's even worse than trash. Just when most of the people thought Duan Lingtian had gone mad, he looked at Teng Shan and said, "You're right." The entire place fell silent immediately. A certain old dog? Someone who's even worse than trash? At once, many strange gazes landed on Lian and Yang Wu one after another. Many people even secretly gave Duan Lingtian a thumbs up. It was fine if he scolded Yang Wu, but Duan Lingtian even scolded Lian, the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder. Apart from being shocked, they could also see Duan Lingtian was acting so recklessly because he had nothing left to lose. Lian's eyes were cold. Although he knew Duan Lingtian was scolding him, it was not appropriate for him to lose his temper since Duan Lingtian had not mentioned his name. Otherwise, would he not be admitting that he was an old dog? "I'll definitely tear you into 1,000 pieces." Yang Wu glared at Duan Lingtian coldly. His eyes were as sharp as blades, as though he wanted to tear Duan Lingtian into 1,000 pieces. "Have you made up your mind?" Tang Shan asked in a deep voice. He did not think the purple-clad young man before him was a match for Yang Wu. Even if the purple-clad young man was not injured, he was only at the peak of the eminent saint stage. However, Yang Wu was a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator. Yes, Duan Lingtian nodded. "I hope Elder Teng Shan can be a witness and ensure that this death duel is absolutely fair. You don't have to worry about that. No third party can interfere in a one-on-one death duel in the Black Turtle Sanctum unless he wants to go against the entire Black Turtle Sanctum, the 4 symbol sanctums, and even the entire Zoroastrianism." Tang Shan glanced at Lian as he spoke. He was still brooding over the fact that Lian had doubted his judgment and attacked Duan Lingtian. In the Black Turtle Sanctum, nobody was allowed to create trouble. Otherwise, they would be punished, just like Yang Wu. However, if it was a public one-on-one death duel, it would be protected by the Black Turtle Sanctum. Due to this reason, Teng Shan acted this way. "What's your name?" Tang Shan asked as he looked at Duan Lingtian before the death duel began. Although he did not have high hopes for this young man, he had a good impression of this young man due to his courage and how he had indirectly called Lian an old dog. If it was possible, he really did not want this young man to throw his life away. However, now that things had come to this, it was no longer something he could control. "Duan Lingtian." Duan Lingtian replied with a smile. "Good name." Tang Shan's eyes lit up as he praised. Although news of the Devil Seal Tablet's appearance had spread from the lower province to the upper province, many people knew that the Devil Seal Tablet was in the possession of a lower province martial cultivator called Duan Lingtian. They were not unfamiliar with the name Duan Lingtian. However, the Dao Martial Saint Land was so big that it was normal for people with the same name to appear. For this reason, when Duan Lingtian revealed his real name, it did not cause any commotion. Moreover, Even if people found out that Duan Lingtian was the one who had obtained the Devil Seal tablet, nobody would do anything to him. This was because everyone knew the Devil Seal tablet was in the hands of Elder Xiezong of the Zhuangzi Buddhism. Long before he came to the Zoroastrianism, Duan Lingtian had used the disguising secret tactic to change his appearance. Although he did not change much, he looked like a different person. At the very least, even his closest relatives would not be able to recognize him as Duan Lingtian with just a glance. Of course, he only changed his appearance a little. He didn't change his name. Due to this reason, when Tingshan asked for his name, he directly revealed his real name. I've seen many lunatics in my life, but this is my first time seeing such a lunatic. That's right. This Duan Lingtian is a lunatic among lunatics. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that he's going to die in the death duel with Yang Wu. Even then, he still dares to ask Elder Tingshan to be his witness. Perhaps, he thinks he's not inferior to Yang Wu in terms of imposing manner. The people present on the scene whispered among themselves as they discussed among themselves. Even though Duan Lingtian had asked Tingshan to be his witness and revealed his confidence, nobody thought he would be able to kill Yang Wu. Lian and Yang Wu thought so as well. Even if a powerhouse at the peak of the eminent saint stage was at his peak, it was impossible for him to be a match for a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator even if he was heavily injured. Trash is trash. Even at this moment, you're still trying to be mysterious. Zhao Wu sneered as he looked at Duan Lingtian in disdain. Make your move. However, faced with Zhao Wu's disdain, Duan Lingtian did not waste his breath on him. Instead, he stared at him calmly and said indifferently, "Since you're seeking death, I'll fulfill your wish." When Zhao Wu saw Duan Lingtian was still so calm and did not reveal the fear he had imagined, he was instantly enraged. After he shouted, his body moved and shot toward Duan Lingtian like an arrow that was released from a bow. The mere powerhouse at the peak of the eminent saint stage dares to accept my second young master's death duel. You're seeking death. The old man who had been following Zhao Wu since the beginning stood at the side and watched the battle. He looked at Duan Lingtian as though he was looking at a dead man. Junior brother Lingtian, Duan Lingtian. Chapter 1896. Trash. If there's an afterlife, remember that when you meet someone like me, you'd better avoid me. Otherwise, no matter how many lives you have, you're doomed to die young. Yang Wu ran like the wind. In the blink of an eye, he was near Duan Lingtian. A disdainful voice was transmitted over, and accompanying it was a 3-foot-long sword that emitted an oppressive cold aura. Whoosh! The 3-foot-long sword broke through the air and turned into a 7-foot-long sword light. It was so cold and threatening that it seemed to be able to pierce through everything. It swept toward Duan Lingtian. 100 inscriptions, sacred sword. Sensing the fierce aura of the 3-foot-long sword in Yang Wu's hand and seeing the power it displayed, many people immediately recognized that it was 100 inscriptions sacred weapon. If it wasn't 100 inscriptions sacred weapon, it couldn't be so powerful. Whoosh! At the same time, with Yang Wu as the center, the void shook and then condensed into a territory. Inside the territory, Duan Lingtian could clearly feel a wave of gravitational force shrouding him. The pressure caused his injuries that were already very serious to worsen. His face turned green and white as he spat out a large mouthful of blood with a barf sound. Obviously, Yang Wu's territory was the gravity territory. Junior brother Lingtian. Seeing that Duan Lingtian had spat out blood and his face was getting paler and paler, Gu Li's face changed greatly. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, but there was nothing he could do. He was so anxious that his teeth were about to be crushed. Zhu Luqi's face also changed greatly, and he looked worried. Die! Yang Wu suddenly shouted. His body shook, and he entered the gravity territory like lightning. It was as if he was walking on flat ground, and he wasn't affected at all. This was his own territory, so it naturally wouldn't affect him. In the blink of an eye, under everyone's gaze, Yang Wu walked in the territory alone with a sword. He was like a sword god, and when the sword god was angry, blood would splash for thousands of miles. He was going to kill Duan Lingtian. This Duan Lingtian is going to be killed. The gap is too big. They're not at the same level at all. Seeing this scene, many people shook their heads and sighed. It was as if they could already see the scene of Duan Lingtian being killed by Yu Yu. Bastard, how dare you insult me? Consider yourself lucky. If I were to make a move myself, I'd definitely make you die a graveless death. Lian looked at Duan Lingtian, who was about to die under Yang Wu's sword. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he sneered. Just now, Duan Lingtian had called him an old dog in a roundabout way, which had completely infuriated him. If Duan Lingtian hadn't cursed at him in a roundabout way and had directly cursed him, he would have struck out like a thunderbolt and killed Duan Lingtian. However, even though Duan Lingtian was scolding him in a roundabout way, the anger in his heart did not diminish. Now that he saw that Duan Lingtian was going to die under Yang Wu's sword, he naturally felt very relieved. Sigh. Teng Shan sighed. A hint of pity could be seen in his eyes. Even he did not think Duan Lingtian was a match for Yang Wu. At that moment, he was prepared to turn his head away. He did not want to see Duan Lingtian's blood splattering everywhere. However, just as he was about to turn his head away, the situation changed drastically. How's this possible? Tang Shan's eyes narrowed as he looked in the direction of Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu. His face was filled with shock and disbelief. Impossible. Just as Tang Shan's eyes narrowed, Lian's expression changed drastically as well. Disbelief could be seen in his eyes. He could not believe what was happening before his eyes was real. Under the gaze of Tang Shan and Lian, a whirlpool quickly appeared with Duan Lingtian's body as the center. The whirlpool spun, and the energy in the surroundings was almost materialized as it was absorbed into his body. During this process, Yang Wu's gravitational territory collapsed immediately. Whoosh! However, the collapse of the gravitational territory did not affect the sword in Yang Wu's hand. Although Yang Wu was shocked by the scene before him, he continued to exert his strength. The 100 inscriptions Saint's sword in his hand whistled as it slashed toward Duan Lingtian's neck. It was obvious he wanted to cut off Duan Lingtian's head. Whoosh! At this moment, Yang Wu only saw a flash in front of his eyes. It was accompanied by a deafening sound of wind whistling that caused his eardrums to tremble slightly. Clang! In the next instant, a loud sound of metal colliding rang in the air. It broke Yang Wu's eardrums, causing blood to spurt out of his ears. However, before Yang Wu had time to care about his ears, he felt a violent vibration coming from the 100 inscriptions Saint's sword in his hand. It was as though his sword had struck an indestructible object. Not only did the force of the shockwave rupture Yang Wu's perlicue, it even transmitted into Yang Wu's body, causing his internal organs to tremble and severely injuring him. Barf! Yang Wu's body trembled as he spat out a mouthful of blood. While he was feeling dizzy, he glanced at the place where the 100 inscriptions Saint's sword in his hand had landed. Over there was a ferocious claw lying horizontally. It was this claw that had blocked the 100 inscriptions Saint's sword in his hand. Initially, he thought it was a saint beast or savage beast that had helped Duan Lingtian. However, when he looked up, he discovered the claw that looked no different from a dragon's claw was on Duan Lingtian's hand. Whoosh! Before Yang Wu could take a closer look at the dragon's claw on Duan Lingtian's hand, the dragon's claw disappeared before his eyes and was replaced by a human's hand. At the same time, the hand shot out at lightning speed and grabbed Yang Wu's throat. A vast and boundless energy suppressed Yang Wu's strength as it lifted him up by the neck. Cough, 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 cough. With the energy in Yang Wu's body suppressed, he could not fly. His face turned red as he was lifted up by the neck. He could not breathe and was on the verge of suffocating. It seems like I'm not the one who's going to die. At this moment, an indifferent voice sounded. It was Duan Lingtian who had lifted Yang Wu up by the neck. Duan Lingtian stared coldly at the red-faced Yang Wu. There was no emotion in his eyes at all. Earlier, when the 100 inscriptions Saint's sword in Yang Wu's hand was about to land on Duan Lingtian and kill him, Duan Lingtian made a move in time. He immediately cast the high-grade divine ability, the devouring technique. With the divine ability, the devouring technique, Even if he could not use the Sun True Origin to his heart's content due to his severe injuries, he could still increase his Sun True Origin. Although it was impossible for him to increase his Sun True Origin to his peak, it was not difficult for him to increase his Sun True Origin to the point where he could deal with Yang Wu. At the same time, he also dragonized his right hand. Currently, he could transform into a 9-clawed dragon warrior at will. Naturally, it was easy for him to transform his hand into a dragon claw. With the help of the dragon claw and the Sun True Origin that had been raised by the devouring technique, Duan Lingtian easily blocked the 100 Inscriptions Saint weapon in Yang Wu's hand. From the beginning until the end, he did not feel any pressure at all. Although the 100 Inscriptions Saint weapon was powerful, the problem was Yang Wu was not powerful. A mere Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator wielding the 100 Inscriptions Saint weapon was not a threat to Duan Lingtian at all. Duan Lingtian's claw had not only blocked the 100 Inscriptions Saint sword in Yang Wu's hand, but it had also severely injured Yang Wu. Due to this reason, the following scene happened. See this. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. How's this possible? Wasn't he injured by Elder Lian? How's it possible for him to unleash such powerful strength? Isn't he a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage? Let's not talk about an injured martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Even if he's a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage at his peak, would he have such strength? The onlookers were stunned for a moment before they regained their senses one after another. Shock and disbelief could be seen on their faces. Many of them felt as though their minds had stopped working. Who could tell them what was going on? How could a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage be able to unleash such powerful strength when he was severely injured? How could he counterattack a Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator and directly control his opponent's life? They could see that if Duan Lingtian wanted to, he could take Yang Wu's life at any time. Junior brother Lingtian. Unlike the others who were in shock and disbelief, Gu Li's eyes brightened when he saw the scene before him. At the same time, he sighed in relief. Freak. Zhu Luqi was stunned for a long time before he spat out these two words. The strength that Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier had also shocked him. It did not cross his mind that Duan Lingtian would still be so powerful even after he was severely injured. He managed to turn the tables and defeat Yang Wu, a Mastery Divine Saint stage martial cultivator, in just a few moves. Not only that, but Yang Wu's life was in his hands as well. Let go of second young master. At the same time, the old man who had been following behind Yang Wu could no longer hold himself back when he saw Duan Lingtian strangling Yang Wu with a pained expression on his face. The old man shouted as he charged toward Duan Lingtian like a gust of wind in an attempt to save his second young master. Humph! However, as soon as the old man made his move, a thunderous snort reverberated in the air. Bang! Along with it was a vast and terrifying power that sent the old man flying. If you continue to be so presumptuous, you'll definitely die, Tung Shan said coldly as he glared at the old man who was sent flying. The old man was so frightened that his body trembled as his face turned pale. The old man took a deep breath as he looked at Lian, who was standing next to Ting Shan. Elder Lian, you're a good friend of our fifth elder. You must save the second young master. The fifth elder only has 2 sons, and he loves the second young master dearly. If anything happens to the second young master, he won't be able to accept it. When the old man realized it was impossible for him to save his young master, he immediately shifted his attention to Lian. Upon hearing the voice transmission, Lian's originally grave expression turned even graver. Ask him to save him? How? Everyone present on the scene had witnessed Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu having a fair death duel. If he was thick-skinned enough to make a move, he would indeed be able to save Yang Wu. Chapter 1897. Lian knew this very well. If he interfered in the death duel between Duan Lingtian and Yang Wu, he would definitely be expelled from Zoroastrianism. Would he leave Zoroastrianism for Yang Wu? Of course not. Let alone his friend's son. Even if it was for his own son, he would not do anything that would offend Zoroastrianism. Once he offended it, he would be expelled from Zoroastrianism. Publicly interfering in a death duel and ruining the reputation of Zoroastrianism was one of the biggest taboos of Zoroastrianism. Duan Lingtian. Although Lian did not dare to interfere in the death duel, he still dared to threaten Duan Lingtian through voice transmission. Let him go. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Lian threatened Duan Lingtian in an almost commanding tone, forcing Duan Lingtian to let Yang Wu go. Regret it? Upon hearing Lian's voice transmission, Duan Lingtian turned around and looked at Lian calmly. In the next moment, a sneer appeared on the corner of Duan Lingtian's mouth as he said loudly, Elder Lian, if I'm not mistaken, Yang Wu and I have a death duel. What do you mean by asking me to let Yang Wu go through voice transmission? If we don't let him go, we'll regret it. How do you want me to regret it, Elder Lian? In the end, Duan Lingtian looked deeply at Lian and asked without the slightest scruple. Whoosh! As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, an uproar broke out in the crowd. Several gazes landed on Lian's figure. There were looks of disdain, disgust, and anger. At this moment, Lian had become everyone's target. All of this was due to his threat to Duan Lingtian. Is he really the Black Turtle Sanctum's first silver flame elder of Zoroastrianism? How dare you interfere in a deathmatch like this? You're a disgrace to the Black Turtle Sanctum and Zoroastrianism. If it wasn't for Duan Lingtian, I wouldn't have known that the Silver Flame Elder of Zoroastrianism had such a side to him. How disgusting. After a while, quite a few courageous people began to curse. They all expressed their dissatisfaction with their words. Lian had incurred the wrath of the masses. Elder Lian, isn't this a little inappropriate? Tung Shan looked at Lian and frowned as he asked in a deep voice, Elder Tung Shan, he is just slandering us. How can you believe that? Not to be outdone, Lian replied. At the same time, Lian looked at Duan Lingtian and said coldly, Duan Lingtian, do you know what the punishment for slandering an elder of Zoroastrianism is? If you don't want to die, you better shut your mouth obediently. When Lian finished speaking, he looked at Duan Lingtian coldly. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, as though he was about to devour Duan Lingtian. The reason he did this was to scare Duan Lingtian. He did not expect Duan Lingtian would reply to his words through voice transmission. This feeling was no different from having his last layer of cloth removed. Duan Lingtian, if you don't want to die, you better shut your mouth obediently. At the same time, Lian did not forget to threaten Duan Lingtian again through voice transmission. Don't think I'm joking. If you don't shut your mouth, you'll definitely die even if you've entered Zoroastrianism. I, Lian, am the Black Turtle Sanctum's first Silver Flame Elder of Zoroastrianism. To me, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken. Lian's voice turned colder as he threatened Duan Lingtian. Haha. However, just when Lian thought Duan Lingtian would give in due to his threat, Duan Lingtian laughed loudly. Then, Duan Lingtian looked at Lian, who had a grave expression on his face, and said, Elder Lian, you keep saying that I'm slandering you. Why don't we swear on the lightning penalty oath to see who's telling the truth? Lightning penalty oath. As soon as Duan Lingtian finished speaking, Lian's expression turned grave immediately. Everyone present on the scene shifted their attention to Lian in unison. They wanted to see if Lian dared to swear on the lightning penalty oath. If he did not, it would mean that he was guilty. Who do you think you are? How dare you swear on the lightning penalty oath with me? Under the watchful eyes of the others, Lian glanced at Duan Lingtian disdainfully before he smiled condescendingly. As soon as Lian finished speaking, a series of jeers rang in the air. It was obvious that they were jeering at Lian. Although Lian's words sounded dignified, most of the people present were well aware of the truth. Lian must have come up with such a lousy excuse because he was guilty and did not dare to swear on the lightning penalty oath. After the commotion caused by Duan Lingtian, Lian no longer dared to use voice transmission to threaten Duan Lingtian. However, when he looked at Duan Lingtian from afar, his gaze was even colder than before. It was filled with endless hatred. Naturally, Duan Lingtian noticed Lian's gaze. However, he was not bothered by it at all. This was because he knew very well that when he scolded Lian as an old dog in a roundabout way, he was already on the opposite side of Lian. There was no turning back. However, he did not regret it at all. Previously, If Tang Shan had not blocked half of Lian's attack for him, he would have been killed by Lian. At that time, Lian did not show any mercy and directly tried to kill him. It was obvious that Lian wanted to kill him. Before that, he had never met Lian. It was also Lian's first time meeting him, and yet, Lian wanted to kill him. How could he not be enraged? Due to this reason, it was also at that time that he regarded Lian as his mortal enemy. Under such circumstances, how could he possibly take Lian's threat to heart? Cough. Cough cough. Duan. Duan Ling Tian. I beg you. Let me go. Please. Cough cough. At the same time, Yang Wu, who was lifted up by the neck by Duan Ling Tian, began to struggle and beg for mercy from Duan Ling Tian when he realized it was impossible for Lian to save him. At this moment, Yang Wu no longer had the arrogance from before. I really didn't expect the outcome to be like this. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it's simply unbelievable. That's right. In the beginning, almost everyone thought Duan Ling Tian would definitely die in this death duel. Who would have thought that he actually launched a counterattack in the end? Not only did he easily defeat Zhao Wu, but he even subdued Zhao Wu and held Zhao Wu's life in his hands. This Duan Ling Tian is definitely not a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage. Of course, based on the strength he's currently displaying, how could he possibly be a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage? He's more like a martial cultivator at the peak of the divine saint stage. Upon hearing Yang Wu begging for mercy from Duan Ling Tian, the people present on the scene could not help but sigh when they recalled how arrogant Yang Wu was in front of Duan Ling Tian. Second young master. The old man who was severely injured by Ting Shan stood in the distance with a pale face. A hint of helplessness could be seen in his eyes. He was severely injured, so it was impossible for him to save Yang Wu. Moreover, even if he was not injured, he would not be able to save Yang Wu. This was because Tang Shan, who was invited by Duan Ling Tian to witness the death duel. It was impossible for Tang Shan to let him save Yang Wu. Spare you? In the face of Yang Wu's begging, Duan Ling Tian's expression remained indifferent. I'm very curious. If I fall into your hands and my life is in your hands, will you, Yang Wu, let me go? Upon hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, Yang Wu's eyes narrowed slightly as his body tensed up. It was as though he was afraid Duan Ling Tian would see through his thoughts. Even if you don't, I know the answer. Duan Ling Tian's eyes gradually turned cold as killing intent shot out. My answer is the same as well. No. Cough. No. 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 Upon sensing Duan Ling Tian's killing intent, Yang Wu struggled violently as he shouted indistinctly. His eyes were filled with terror and despair. Elder Lian, do you have anything else to say to him? You won't have the chance if you're too late. Before killing Yang Wu, Duan Ling Tian looked at Lian in a timely manner and asked nonchalantly. Provocation. A blatant provocation. At this moment, everyone present on the scene could clearly sense the thick smell of gunpowder between the two of them. Faced with Duan Ling Tian's provocation, Lian felt as though his lungs were about to explode. However, he did not want to lose his temper in front of so many people. After all, his every move represented the Black Turtle Sanctum and the Zoroastrianism. Wu, rest in peace. It won't be long before Uncle Lian sends him on his way to reunite with you. In the end, Lian glanced at Yang Wu and transmitted his voice to him. At this moment, his tone was slightly heavy. No matter what, Yang Wu was still his best friend's son. Now that he had died here, he really did not know how to face his best friend the next time he saw him. However, there was nothing he could do at this moment. He could only watch as Yang Wu died. Duan Ling Tian, since you've killed him, not only will you have to bear my wrath in the future, but you'll also have to bear the wrath of Yang Chong, the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect. You're dead meat. Lian stared at Duan Ling Tian coldly. He had already sentenced Duan Ling Tian to death in his heart. Crack. A crisp sound resonated in the air. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Duan Ling Tian exerted force in his hand and killed Yang Wu. Until the moment he was killed, Yang Wu's eyes were still wide open. He did not have any intention of closing them at all. After killing Yang Wu and putting away Yang Wu's 100 inscriptions Saint Sword and Spatial Ring, Duan Lingtian loosened his grip on Yang Wu's neck and allowed Yang Wu's body to fall from the sky. At the same time, his body trembled violently, and his face turned pale immediately. At this moment, the energy that had been devoured by the high-grade divine ability, the devouring tactic, had finally been depleted. Duan Lingtian did not have much spiritual energy left as well. It was precisely because he had noticed the energy he had devoured using the devouring tactic was quickly draining away that he had decided to kill Yang Wu so quickly. He was worried that the situation would change. He's dead? The son of the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect died, just like that. I wonder how angry the fifth elder of the Northern Plethora sect would be when he finds out about this. Humph. This Yang Wu deserved to die. If he didn't take the initiative to offend someone, no one would have killed him. Chapter 1898. Soon after, everyone's eyes shifted to Duan Lingtian in unison. This purple-clad young man whom they did not think highly of earlier had turned the tables and killed Yang Wu at the Mastery Divine Saint stage in the nick of time. Such an unexpected outcome shocked them so much that they only regained their senses after a long time. In fact, all of them thought the purple-clad young man would die in Yang Wu's hands. This Duan Lingtian must know some secret tactic that can conceal his cultivation base. Someone chimed in. Definitely. The others agreed with his words as well. Although they had never heard of any secret tactic that could conceal one's cultivation base in the Dao Martial Saint Land, they could not deny the existence of such a secret tactic. In particular, after witnessing the strength Duan Lingtian had displayed, they were almost 100% certain he had such a secret tactic. What a joke. According to their divine consciousness, Duan Lingtian's cultivation base was only at the peak of the eminent saint stage. However, it was precisely this person whose cultivation base was only at the peak of the eminent saint stage who had shattered the territory of a mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator in just one blow, even though he had yet to recover from his injuries. Moreover, he had even forcefully taken on the 100 inscriptions saint sword that the mastery divine saint stage martial cultivator had activated with all his strength. Moreover, he had subdued his opponent in just a blink of an eye and held his opponent's life in his hands. Was this something a martial cultivator at the peak of the eminent saint stage could do? Earlier, when Yang Wu made his move, he looked half dead. However, when Yang Wu approached him, he cast an extremely terrifying technique. It seemed as though he had swallowed all the heaven and earth spirit energy in the surroundings. I saw it as well. At that time, a whirlpool appeared in the sky with him as the center. The energy in the surroundings was being sucked into the whirlpool at an extremely fast speed. The center of the whirlpool was none other than Duan Lingtian. It's obvious the energy that was sucked into the whirlpool was controlled by Duan Lingtian in the end. That's why he was able to cast such a powerful force even though he was severely injured. Apart from that, the whirlpool even shattered Yang Wu's territory. Such a terrifying technique, it must be a divine ability. Moreover, it's not an ordinary divine ability. It might even be a high-grade divine ability. The onlookers discussed animatedly. Their gazes fell on Duan Lingtian, filled with shock and horror. In addition, the thing he used to block Yang Wu's 100-pattern sacred sword seems to be a claw-shaped sacred weapon. That saint weapon can withstand the 100 inscriptions saint sword. It's most likely a 100 inscriptions saint weapon. Many people turned their attention to Duan Lingtian's dragon claw. Of course, they did not know that Duan Lingtian had transformed into a dragon warrior. They thought that it was a 100-pattern saint weapon that Duan Lingtian had taken out in a hurry and put away after using it. Dragon warrior? If there was anyone present who could tell that Duan Lingtian had transformed into a dragon warrior, it would be Tingshan and Lian. As the Silver Flame Elders of the Zoroastrianism sect and ranked in the top 200 on the Supreme Saint ranking, they were not only powerful, but they were also very observant. Although Duan Lingtian had only transformed his hand into a dragon claw for a split second, they could tell that it was a dragon claw. They did not notice how many claws there were on the dragon claw. Of course, it was also because Duan Lingtian had quickly put away his dragon claw that they did not notice it in time. Even so, They were certain that Duan Lingtian had transformed into a dragon claw. They were certain that Duan Lingtian could transform into a dragon warrior. I didn't expect this guy to be a dragon warrior. When Tang Shan saw that Duan Lingtian had killed Yang Wu and won the death duel, he was happy for him. At the same time, he was surprised by Duan Lingtian's dragon warrior identity. It seems like he's related to one of the 7-clawed divine dragons. Since Tang Shan did not see the 9 dragon claws on Duan Lingtian's dragon claw, he naturally thought that Duan Lingtian was a 7-clawed dragon warrior. If he knew that Duan Lingtian was a 9-clawed dragon warrior, he would be even more surprised. So what if he's a dragon warrior? Coincidentally, I've never killed a dragon warrior in my life. I can try it out. Li An's gaze turned colder as he looked at Duan Lingtian. He could not hide the killing intent in his eyes. Thank you, Elder Tang Shan, for upholding the fairness of the death duel. After killing Yang Wu, Duan Lingtian turned a blind eye to the people around him. He immediately looked at Tang Shan and cupped his hands together to thank him. There's no need to thank me. As an elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum of Zoroastrianism, this is my duty. Tang Shan shook his head. With this, the farce came to an end. Naturally, it only seemed like it had come to an end. In truth, this farce had only just begun with Yang Wu's death. After killing Yang Wu, Duan Lingtian had offended many people. Firstly, it was the first Silver Flame Elder of the Black Turtle Sanctum of Zoroastrianism, Lian. Secondly, it was the 5th Elder of the Northern Plethora Sect, Yang Chong. Although the Northern Plethora Sect's Elder was a level lower than the Zoroastrianism's Elder, Yang Chong was the first Elder of the Northern Plethora Sect. However, as the 5th Elder of the Northern Plethora Sect, Yang Chong's strength was in no way inferior to Lian, who was a Silver Flame Elder of the Zoroastrianism. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to become good friends. It was precisely because both of their strengths were on par that they became good friends. Moreover, as the 5th Elder of the Northern Plethora Sect, Yang Chong's influence in the Northern Plethora Sect was not something Lian could compare to. In the entire Zoroastrianism, Lian was merely one of the many Silver Flame Elders. He was very ordinary. He only had some influence in the Black Turtle Sanctum, one of the 4 symbol sanctums that was in charge of external affairs in the Zoroastrianism. There were a total of 5 Silver Flame Elders in the Black Turtle Sanctum, and he was the strongest. I can't believe I've offended 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses so soon after arriving in the Upper Province. Duan Lingtian had already anticipated the consequences of killing Yang Wu even before he killed him. However, he still killed Yang Wu in the end. It was not Duan Lingtian's style to be afraid of the slightest thing. Moreover, he knew very well that even if he did not kill Yang Wu, Lian would not let him go. Killing Yang Wu would only mean he had offended another Saint Celestial stage powerhouse who was similar to Lian. In his opinion, there was no difference between offending 1 or 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses. The pressure from 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses is really great. It's been a long time since I felt such great pressure. It seems like I'll have to seize the time to raise my strength after joining the Zoroastrianism and becoming a member of the Zoroastrianism. Although Duan Lingtian was fearless, he still felt great pressure when facing 2 Saint Celestial stage powerhouses. Right now, Hua Lao should be done repairing the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. As long as the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda is repaired, not only will I have a better cultivation environment, but I'll also have a place to hide. The moment Duan Lingtian thought of this, he became excited. Currently, the 3rd level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda had only been repaired. Although the cultivation environment in the 3rd level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was not bad, it was still lacking compared to the cultivation environment in the upper province of the Dao Martial Saint Land. The only advantage was the time flow inside was 5 times slower than outside. 5 days inside was equivalent to 1 day outside. However, once the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was repaired, not only would there be a better cultivation environment, but the time flow would also slow down. According to Hua Lao, the time flow inside the 4th level of the 7 Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was 8 times slower than outside. 8 days inside was equivalent to 1 day outside. Just this alone was enough for Duan Lingtian to go all out to search for all kinds of materials to repair the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Apart from that, there was another important thing that Duan Lingtian was looking forward to the most. According to Hua Lao, once the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda was repaired, the space inside the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda would be completely stabilized. No matter how big the commotion outside was, the space inside the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda would not be affected. It would not be like before where he would be thrown out if there was even the slightest movement. If the fourth level of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda is repaired, I'll be able to hide even if I encounter an opponent I can't defeat. As long as I hide in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and turn it into a speck of dust, my opponent won't be able to find me. When Duan Lingtian thought about this, he became excited again. At that time, he would have a life-saving talisman. Moreover, it was a life-saving talisman that could be used infinitely. More and more people gathered in the Black Turtle Sanctum. When Duan Lingtian returned to Guli and Zhu Luqi's side, the others left as well. They did not forget the purpose of their visit today. They wanted to participate in the Four Symbols Sanctum's assessment, including the Black Turtle Sanctum's assessment. They wanted to enter the Zoroastrianism and become a disciple of Zoroastrianism. Most of the people who came today were born and raised in the Western region. They believed in Zoroastrianism and dreamed of becoming a member of Zoroastrianism. To them, it was an honor that could not be replaced by anything. It was a supreme honor. Junior brother Ling Tian, the old man who followed Yang Wu, has left with Yang Wu's body. He must have gone back to the Northern Plethora sect to inform them. Guli reminded Duan Ling Tian as he looked at the old man's silhouette in the distance that was gradually disappearing from his sight. Let him be, Duan Ling Tian said indifferently. The old man was a quintessential Saint Stage powerhouse after all. With his current strength, he could not make the old man stay. Moreover, even if he made the old man stay, the news of him killing Yang Wu would eventually spread to the Northern Plethora sect since it was unavoidable. As more and more people gathered, noon arrived. Behind the mountain range where the Black Turtle Sanctum's estate was located, a group of people had gathered in the sky above a vast and boundless field. From afar, it looked as though dark clouds were looming over the city. At this moment, everyone's attention was on a higher place. There were 8 people standing there. Among the 8 people, there was an old man, an old woman, a middle-aged man, a young man, and a young woman. Chapter 1899. The robes worn by the other 6 people were similar to Ting Shan and Lian's robes. All of them wore white robes with silver flames embroidered on them. The only difference was that the patterns embroidered on their white robes were different from the patterns on Ting Shan and Lian's white robes. The patterns on Ting Shan and Lian's white robes were black tortoise. Among the 6 people, 2 of them had divine dragons embroidered on their robes, 2 of them had giant tigers embroidered on their robes, and 2 of them had a huge firebird embroidered on their robes. They are the elders from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Duan Ling Tian was surprised by the difference in the robes of the 6 men and faintly guessed they were the elders of the other 3 sanctums. It was obvious they had also guessed the identities of the other 6 men. I heard that among the 4 sanctums of Zoroastrianism, only the White Tiger Sanctum provides offensive divine abilities to their disciples. I hope I'll be chosen by the 2 elders from the White Tiger Sanctum. A young man said with anticipation as he looked at the 2 elders from the White Tiger Sanctum. I hope the 2 elders from the Vermilion Bird Sanctum will take me. The divine ability that the Vermilion Bird Sanctum provides to their disciples is a movement divine ability. As the saying goes, speed is the only thing that's invincible among all the martial tactics in the world. Speed is the only thing that's invincible among all the divine abilities in the world. Another person said with anticipation. Unlike the young man who wanted to go to the White Tiger Sanctum, this person wanted to go to the Vermilion Bird Sanctum. Actually, it's not bad even if I'm chosen by the Azure Dragon Sanctum. The divine ability that the disciples from the Azure Dragon Sanctum mastered is an assist-type divine ability. It's said that it evolved from the inherited divine ability, the true berserk transformation, of the dragons. Another person chimed in. Hee. Compared to the divine abilities from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and Vermilion Bird Sanctum, I prefer the defensive divine ability from the Black Turtle Sanctum. It's said that although the divine abilities in the four sanctums are all high-grade divine abilities, the Black Turtle's barrier from the Black Turtle Sanctum is more advanced. A middle-aged man chuckled. The Black Turtle's barrier. High-grade defensive divine ability? Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed when he heard the middle-aged man's words. He had also heard that each of the four symbol sanctums had a divine ability for their disciples to comprehend, but he did not pay much attention to it. In his opinion, the divine abilities provided by the four symbol sanctums were only medium-grade divine abilities. It was only when he heard the middle-aged man's words that he realized he had guessed wrongly. The divine abilities that the disciples of the four sanctums comprehended were all high-grade divine abilities. Most importantly, the Black Turtle Sanctum's high-grade divine ability was the defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. Do I have such an affinity with the Black Turtle Sanctum? Duan Lingtian's gaze landed on Tang Shan and Lian as he sighed in his heart. Currently, he had mastered high-grade divine abilities. The offensive divine ability was the Transcendent Flying Immortal, the auxiliary divine ability was the Elementary Devouring Technique, and the movement divine ability was the Golden Crow Wings. The only thing missing was a high-level defensive divine ability. However, he did have a medium-grade defensive divine ability. It was the golden indestructible body he had obtained in the mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial Secret Zone. However, since the other divine abilities were all high-grade divine abilities, Duan Lingtian instinctively looked down on the golden indestructible body and did not cultivate it. Naturally, the reason he did not cultivate it was because Duan Lingtian did not want to waste his time and energy on medium-grade divine abilities. Currently, he was in a hurry to raise his strength so he could rescue Kerr and their daughter. He did not want to waste any time. One could imagine this. If the Mystical Sky Mansion's disciples who entered the Mystical Sky Mansion's St. Martial Secret Zone with Duan Lingtian back then knew what Duan Lingtian was thinking, they would definitely be angered to the point of throwing up blood. He did not want to waste his time and energy on medium-grade divine abilities. Just this alone was akin to showing off. I've finally encountered a high-grade defensive divine ability. I must stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum for the sake of obtaining the divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. Duan Lingtian muttered to himself. His eyes were filled with determination. Although Duan Lingtian knew the four symbol sanctums had divine abilities for their disciples to comprehend, he thought they were all medium-grade divine abilities. Due to this reason, he did not pay much attention to them. He only thought it would be the same no matter which sanctum he joined. However, now that he found out the four symbol sanctums provided their disciples with high-grade divine abilities, he no longer had any thoughts of staying put. He immediately decided to join the Black Turtle Sanctum. The Black Turtle Sanctum had the high-grade defensive divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, that he desperately wanted. Since it was rare for him to encounter a high-grade defensive divine ability, naturally, he would not miss it. Although Hualao was in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, he had asked Hualao for a high-grade defensive divine ability. However, according to Hualao, other than the Golden Crow's wings that it had passed to him, the other divine abilities it was familiar with required one to possess the strength of a celestial to cast. For this reason, Duan Lingtian had dismissed the idea of asking Hualao for a divine ability. He would have to rely on himself. Everyone. At the same time, Silver Flame Elder Tang Shan in the Black Turtle Sanctum finally spoke. Tang Shan was tall and burly, and his voice was rough as well. Coupled with the majestic energy in his voice, everyone present on the scene could hear him clearly. The fact that all of you are here today is enough to show your intentions. All of you must want to become a disciple of the Zoroastrianism. When Tang Shan reached this part of the sentence, his voice became louder and louder. Now, tell me, is that right? Suddenly, Tang Shan's voice became louder and louder like thunder. Yes, yes. As soon as Tang Shan finished speaking, almost everyone, including the people around Duan Lingtian, who wanted to join the Zoroastrianism to become a disciple of the Zoroastrianism, broke out in an uproar. The atmosphere at the scene was instantly ignited and ignited. I really didn't expect Elder Teng Shan to be so meticulous despite his careless appearance. He's so good at stirring up the atmosphere. Duan Lingtian was shocked when he saw Teng Shan stirring up the atmosphere with just a few words. As Teng Shan raised his hands and pressed them down, the scene gradually returned to normal. Now, I'm sure all of you can see that apart from Elder Lian, who's also a Black Turtle Sanctum's elder like me, the other 6 elders are from the Azure Dragon Sanctum, White Tiger Sanctum, and Vermilion Bird Sanctum respectively. Teng Shan's voice continued to ring in the air. The reason they're here today is to select some of you to go to their sanctums. No matter which sanctum you end up in, as long as you pass the test, you'll be able to become a disciple of that sanctum. As long as you become a disciple of the 4 symbol sanctums, it means you've officially joined the Zoroastrianism and become a disciple of the Zoroastrianism. When Teng Shan reached this part of the sentence, the eyes of most people on the scene lit up. Next, all of you just have to stand still. Those who are selected will stand behind the 4 symbol sanctum's elder, who selected you, and follow him back to his sanctum. Teng Shan continued to say, Elder Teng Shan. At this moment, Duan Lingtian immediately sent a voice transmission to Teng Shan. I want to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Elder Teng Shan, please fulfill my wish. Teng Shan was stunned when he heard Duan Lingtian's voice transmission. If Lian was not in the Black Turtle Sanctum, he would do everything in his power to make Duan Lingtian stay. Duan Lingtian's strength and innate talent had completely attracted Teng Shan's attention. However, since Lian was in the Black Turtle Sanctum, he dismissed the idea of making Duan Lingtian stay. If Duan Lingtian stayed, he would not have a good time in the future, since Lian would not let him have an easy time. However, Teng Shan did not expect Duan Lingtian would not only not avoid Lian's Black Turtle Sanctum, but he even sent a voice transmission to him and asked him to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Duan Lingtian, you're not suitable for the Black Turtle Sanctum. With Elder Lian here, there's no benefit for you to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. He's a vengeful person. He'll definitely not let you go. Teng Shan advised through voice transmission. Upon hearing Teng Shan's words, Duan Lingtian felt warmth in his heart. He was not related to Teng Shan at all. It was rare for Teng Shan to do this. Elder Teng Shan, I want to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum because I want to comprehend the Black Turtle Sanctum's high-grade divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier. As for Lian, I'm not afraid of him. Moreover, as long as I'm in the Black Turtle Sanctum in Zoroastrianism, he won't dare to make a move on me. Duan Lingtian bluntly told Teng Shan the reason he wanted to stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Moreover, he said he was not afraid of Lia. As long as you stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, even if he doesn't personally make a move, he'll have plenty of ways to make things difficult for you. Apart from that, although the Black Turtle Sanctum's high-grade divine ability, the Black Turtle's barrier, is powerful, not everyone can successfully comprehend it. Teng Shan continued to say, it's unwise to gamble with your life for a divine ability that you don't even know if you'll be able to comprehend it. It was obvious Teng Shan was still trying to persuade Duan Lingtian to change his mind. Elder Teng Shan, I've already made up my mind. You don't have to persuade me anymore. Moreover, I really hope you can help me. If I can successfully stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum, I, Duan Lingtian, will owe you a favor. Duan Lingtian said resolutely through voice transmission. He sounded a little anxious when he reached the end of his sentence. Since you insist, I won't persuade you anymore. Don't worry, I'll help you stay in the Black Turtle Sanctum. Teng Shan immediately agreed to Duan Lingtian's request. Thank you, Elder Teng Shan. Duan Lingtian was overjoyed when he saw Teng Shan agreeing to his request. He quickly thanked Teng Shan. Everyone, it's still the same as before. From now on, we'll start picking people one by one in 10 breaths. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Teng Shan said to the other 7 4 symbols sanctum's elders. The 7 of them nodded. There are still 8 breaths left. Many people around Duan Lingtian immediately held their breaths. 10 breaths passed in just a blink of an eye. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Under the watchful eyes of the others, a total of 8 rays of light that did not possess any offensive power shot out one by one and locked onto their targets. 6 of them landed on the bodies of 6 people. 2 of them landed on the same person. One of the 2 rays of light, came from Ting Shan, whom Duan Lingtian had entrusted to. The other ray of light came from. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.